Hey, you guys. Uh, Megan. Gosh, I'm so not used to calling you Megan. I'm gonna call you Carolyn.
That's okay.
Uh,
You can call me either one. Hello.
how are you? And David. Okay, so we just threw this last minute thing together because I made a post about David and he was responding to it. We're like, oh, let's get together and actually talk about this. So it's just last minute. But David used to come into my spaces with Bridget. I think David used to be like on your way home from work or something, and every once in a while, David would be able to pop in and say a few words. And I always appreciated David because he was one of only maybe two people who would ever talk about the negative side of being abducted from your bed at night. So I always appreciated David. So we're just doing a quick, it might not be quick, might be, I don't know how long it'll last, but just a casual, chit chat. We'll talk about that post and then whatever else David wanted to talk about. David, I'm not sure if you've met Megan.
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. I have not officially, but I'm aware of her, like familiar with her posts, and have interacted with her here and there on X. So, yes, I believe so. Hello.
Hello. Yes. I see your stuff, and yes, I know that you have come into Fringe and Bridget space. I've heard of that was back when I was pretty new and wasn't willing to say anything right then. But yeah, I'm familiar with you. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, it's good to be here. I feel like I should like kind of preface things with saying that I haven't gotten on space in a long time, and I kind of left the whole community for a while because I got super spooked. Um, and I'm like, I know I hate to sound like paranoid schizophrenic, but it's for real that I was like pulled aside by somebody from U.S. intelligence, and told to just be real careful about what I like say publicly about things that I have been told and things that I've heard, and so I'm like, I don't see anybody popping in that sends off any alarm bells for me, but I do. There are some things that I'm aware of that I just can't say out loud, like names and like bits of information that I've been told. But um, I did get a little too close to the sun there for a little while, and I had like one morning, like acquaintances that know the Strattons and acquaintances that know Lou Elizondo, and they were all messaging me at the same time, like really concerned about what I was saying and if I was safe. And then I had someone from Intel pull me aside. Then after that, subsequently had like a lot of really horrible things happen, including like having my car stolen and lost my job and got divorced and got in a I had to have major surgery. So just everything kind of like fell apart around that same time, and I just got real weirded out, and so I kind of shut up for a while. But I do feel like, as far as all this kind of stuff goes, I do have like an inside track a little bit, and then I've also experienced a lot, or it's been a while now, but I experienced a lot of contact that I would assume would be kind of in line with the abductions. And it's over now. I feel I haven't seen him in a while, but I got a lot to say. I just never say it, and I don't speak up anymore because I am being watched. So I just wanted to preface it with that.
Wow, David. Well, thanks for jumping in. I appreciate. I'm going to take advantage of every minute that you're feeling comfortable to say whatever you have to say. Are you able to speak on what prompted this, the messages from Elizondo and Stratton's camp, and or being pulled aside by the intel person to warn you and to see if you were okay? What do you know? What prompted that?
Yeah, there was. It was. Let's see. I think it was about 2 years ago. Around this time, they had the scientific coalition for the study of unidentified anomalous phenomena in Huntsville, and I live in Huntsville. And so I attended it, and when I was there, someone who's a DoD contractor, former, pulled me aside and was like, "Man, I've kept up with you. I know your story. There's some people you got to meet." I was like, "All right." So he takes me and he introduces me to Linval Logan, or Logan, I think is how everybody kind of knows him. He's got the shaved head. He was with the UAP task force. He runs the Phenom app. So I met with him, and then he introduced me to some people. And then pretty soon I was like at the after party, like dinner kind of thing. And I just remember sitting there. I was like, why is everybody deaf? Like, I've never seen people with so many hearing aids in my life. And I was like, wait, those aren't hearing aids. And so I proceed to, and this, it makes me paranoid just saying this out loud, but I met Michelle Stratton. That's Jay Stratton's wife. And she, came over, and at this point, I'm like in pretty deep, and everybody's telling me all this information that I probably should not have heard. And, then I showed Michelle some of the videos I had of the orbs and crafts and things like that, and then told her my story, and she just looked at me like, wow, like, and so she went and took me to introduce me to Jay. I spoke with him briefly, and then I went on Twitter and kind of started running my mouth about some of the things I had heard. And then I'm friends with some people that have a lot of influence around here. Um, and some of them retweeted that. And I woke up the next morning and one of the posts had just like blown up. And just that next morning, I got a message from one of the people who I had met at that conference that introduced me to Michelle and Jay. And he was like, dude, they are pissed, and like, you need to shut up. And then I got a message from somebody that I know who knows Lou. And she was like, you need to be careful, you need to be quiet. Lou's very apologetic. He's sorry you got dragged into this. And then a couple days later, somebody pulled me aside from US Intel, and he was like, if I can find you, other people can find you. I'm on your side. I'm in support of what you're doing. But there are people who are not, and you just need to be real careful about repeating what you've heard. And then shortly after that, he pulled me into a like private group. And some of the people in that group are like some heavy hitters, and I had to sign an NDA, and I could not discuss who was in that group. I could not discuss what was being said. And that probably had more to do with what they were trying to accomplish and less to do with the information, but still, everybody in there had to give their resume, and these were all like, very important people in the military industrial complex, I guess you would say. And yeah, so that's kind of where things stand now with all of that. So yeah.
Yeah, I vaguely remember this. I remember you posted a couple things, and I think it was going, through the back channels like, "Oh my gosh, what is David doing right now? Is he going to survive this?" But I don't remember I don't remember what was actually in your posts. Can you categorize it for us or give us a general idea of what got you in trouble?
It was concerning Lou Elizondo and like information I had been told about, um and even saying this out loud now, like, it still makes me really paranoid. But from what I understood, he did not have anything. He wasn't holding anything against me. He was understanding and he was apologetic. Um, but yeah, I don't want to repeat what it was that I said. Like, if people remember it, they remember it. I think I deleted the tweet. Um, but aside from that one thing that I repeated, there were other things I was told as well. that like some of it's public information now, but at the time it was not. And then there was other things that have not been said publicly. And you know, I haven't said it, and I don't think I will. But I would say most of the information is kind of in the ethos now, like the recent thing that made it into the mainstream news about the reptiles and the mantids and the greys and the Nordics being the four main types of aliens that are kind of up to stuff here. Like there were some things said in relation to some of that, and then some things said in relation to like evidence of uh, close encounter kind of situations. But you know, it got weird. And then shortly after that, I had a bunch of bad stuff happen to me. And then when my experiences were happening, like in 2009 and 10, 11, 12, 13, there were helicopters and people following me and photographing me. And I remember talking to Logan, and he just shook his head like, "Yep, that goes on." So yeah, it got weird. It got hairy for a minute there.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you're feeling a little bit better. You made it out the other side, I guess. Is there anything that's in the public domain now that you're comfortable talking about, or anything else you want to put out there about this entire situation?
Well, I mean, I think that the Jay Stratton's book that just came out, I don't know what's in it, but I feel like some of what they talked about is probably in that book. And I don't know if it is or not. And I kind of feel like if it's not, then I don't need to like go off the deep end with it. But um, I'll say that like I told him a lot about what happened to me, about the tall grays coming in the house, the short grays coming in the house, the orbs that were all around the windows, and the UFOs like anchored over the house. And they were no stranger to that type of information, and had even like I think that their experiences had gone beyond just like the werewolf thing. I didn't read that book, The Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, but from what I understand, like they had like the hitchhiker thing occur, and they saw like some of that. But I think well, it went beyond that, and so I think that there are people like quote unquote important people who know that NHI, aliens, whatever you want to call them, like entering people's homes, causing problems, not being benevolent. I think that they know that that's going on, and they don't have answers or solutions. And I don't think that, well, I think that they might know more than the average person, but I think it's something that there's like some trepidation about like publicly addressing that, and making that like mainstream information. And I think that there's some hesitancy in regard to that. But I do think that you know these people, like, they're aware of the abduction phenomena, and they're aware that the aliens and the non-human intelligences can enter people's homes, and that they are not all benevolent in nature. I think that that's pretty well known, and it seems like that kind of information is starting to come down the pipeline. Like I've seen 𝗵𝘁𝗶𝘁𝗲, or I'm not sure I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, Lou Elizondo, Jay's new book. I think that kind of information is going to start coming down the pipeline, where abductions, hybridization, that kind of thing is going to start becoming discussed a little bit more.
Wow. Why now, David? What do you think? Why do you think this is happening now? Why, we seem to be getting a big push from several different sides. And you don't have to give anything up that's confidential or anything that's not going to keep you safe. Just in general, what are your thoughts on that?
Um, on why now, I don't know if there's like A reason of, I've heard that there is a concern that, something is coming, like some kind of event or some kind of large mothership type craft is making an approach. And so they're trying to get out ahead of it, just to prepare the public as best they can. I've heard that rumor. I don't know if that's true. Um, but it kind of feels like it kind of feels like a lot of people on the inside know about this and they're excited about it. And once a little bit of that cat got out of the bag, then it was just kind of like a floodgate. And now all these insiders kind of want to talk about it all at the same time. Um, but I don't know. I think that from my own experiences, like before I knew all this stuff and before I'd heard all this stuff, before I was involved in the UFO community, there was definitely seemed to be some kind of communication about like some kind of event that was coming. Of course, that kind of message comes through a lot with the aliens, with the Greys in particular, I feel. So I don't know. I don't necessarily think it's anything nefarious. I don't think it's a psyop. I think it's just like, if not now, when? Like, there's just not a good time to do it. And once a little bit of that information came out, a lot started coming out. And now it's just like, all coming at once. So I don't really know if there is some kind of reason behind it, but I think you guys have probably heard all of that same stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely heard it. I know it was maybe 2 years ago now. It seemed like the back channel started dropping this information. I couldn't tell though, and David, I'm interested in since you've kind of gotten a glimpse into the back channels. Um, it seemed like they wanted the information to come out, like they were putting it out enough that they were either going to look to see how the pipeline flows or, what they could put out and who's going to say it and all that. Um, but this whole idea that there's an event coming, I don't know if this is the same group, but we had Ivan, uh, Elizondo's attorney, in a group talking about this 2027 thing, and or this mothership, this planet-sized object coming our way, all of those kind of things. It seemed like they wanted that information out there for some reason. I'm not sure why. What are your thoughts on that? Was this supposed to be under wraps, or yeah, was that an accidental leak, or did it seem like the information was intentionally put out there from your perspective?
Uh, I mean, I think everything that's coming out is intentional. I don't necessarily think any of it is like nefarious. I don't think anyone's trying to like stage anything. But I was I mean, I can't say names and I can't really say like details and things, but I do, somebody did tell me, and it's not anybody that's public, but that there's like this running theory that a lot of what we're seeing, I guess, namely the Greys, are like highly advanced like AI, and they're being controlled by something that we haven't met yet. That's either en route or will reveal itself. And ultimately, it's some kind of like, I don't want to say takeover, but like a, well, yeah, like a coup or something.
Yeah,
And
it's a takeover, David. I
yeah,
mean, what other
yeah.
word are we going to use here?
Well, and you know, but that's like theoretical. I feel like this kind of information is in the public domain. This is not like some highly classified insider secret. Like, that information could be found on YouTube 20 years ago, by watching interviews with like David Jacobs and Carla Turner and people like that. So, but when you hear people who are highly, quote unquote, educated, credible, insiders with like the military industrial complex start discussing these things and throwing those ideas around, it becomes a little more real, a little bit more serious. So, uh, you know, I don't know.
Did they seem to be taking it seriously? I mean, when I heard this about 2 years ago, I'm not sure when when you got it. Probably, if you were in this secret group, probably got it before I did. But when I heard about it, I mean, I heard that these people were scared. I mean, when I heard it, it was go home, uh, love on your family. We've got about 14 years to live, and there's nothing we can do about it. Like, we can't stop it, we can't mitigate it. There's nothing we can do. And that's terrifying because just being an experiencer, and David, I'm not sure if this happened to you, just jump in, anytime and interrupt me, but I've been having these cataclysmic pole shift type Jesus is coming dreams since I for my whole life. And when I was like 20, when I was like 15 or something like that, me and a girlfriend of mine had a shared pole shift dream, and we knew the end of the world was coming in our lifetime. Now, we don't know that for certain because I now know that abductees are shown a lot of propaganda on the end of the world and this big disaster. You have Bledsoe saying the Earth is going to split open in 2027. Anjali is saying that we don't have past 2027, 2026, 2027. Like right now, we know that abductees get a lot of this propaganda, a lot of these visions. It might be true. There might be a big cataclysm coming. We now have a lot of science supporting a cataclysm coming. If you follow Ben Davidson, you'll know that he thinks that the end of the world is coming in about 2040. We don't know, but we know abductees get a lot of this propaganda. Sometimes it's a dream, sometimes it's shown on a screen. So this kind of stuff is out there, and it's been out there for me for a while, but to hear a so-called insider, I mean, these are insiders who are saying, hey, this is real, this is happening, and I'm scared. Like the people I heard about it from, they were scared. It seemed legitimate, and they seemed frightened about what was coming. Now, the question is, how do they know this? Who are they hearing it from? What evidence is there? I mean, I heard things like the James Webb telescope saw something. I heard Doty once said that Voyager had seen something out there coming our way, some big Death Star type object steering directly toward us, and that they had gotten to the point where they could no longer ignore that it was being powered by something intelligent. So, just any ideas you have on any of that, and we can take this wherever you want. If you want to talk about that post that I put out or anything, are you comfortable with speakers coming up and asking questions? How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, that's fine. I think it's pretty clear from anybody that follows me that I've got pretty strong boundaries. So like
Yeah.
if anybody does or says anything that I find like crossing a line, I'll not respond or have something to say. But like, I'm pretty logical and level-headed as a general rule. So I'm open to discussion, but I think like as far as all that goes, like I don't know him personally, but I have been in contact with uh, Jeremy, um, and I've seen his post where he says, there is going to come a time when the public is going to be told that like a big mothership type craft, like an Independence Day scenario, is going to happen or is coming, and that's a lie. So I don't know what's going on there. I've definitely heard that. I think for me, the reason I was able to kind of get inside was, for one, I was very vocal about what had happened to me, but I think it was because there were multiple witnesses to the events and I had photographs and video that my case was a little bit more solid. And so people listened to me more than they would someone else. Um, but and two, I'm divorced now. And so my ex-wife, has said to leave her out of it. So she doesn't want me to bring her up in these discussions. She doesn't want to have anything to do with it. Because there was, when it was all happening, like, not only is the alien stuff scary, but there was definitely some sense of surveillance, from somebody, and she just doesn't want to have anything to do with any of it. But I will say that, when everything was going on with us, and just like, the general synopsis was like UFOs over the house while seen while awake and sober, orbs, tall and short grays in the house, seen while awake, seen while sober, no CE5, no DMT, no, none of that. And we were both having dreams, and we didn't know we were having the same dreams until later, and we were discussing it, but about the aliens, like, landing and gathering people into the ships to take them off the planet, or away from whatever was going to happen, like some kind of shit hitting the fan scenario. um and so I always took that kind of with a grain of salt, because when they communicate with you, it doesn't happen like conversationally like this. But I come home from work, and there's a like a teardrop shaped craft that's just hanging in the air over my house. Like, it's 11:30 at night. I can see it. I'm awake. I'm sober. Uh, you know, Alien grays are seen in the house on more than one occasion. So something is going on. And then when we have these dreams, is it communication? Is it not? Is it our imagination? Are we paranoid? I don't know, but that definitely came through multiple times. And I know that we were not the only people like having those kinds of dreams and thoughts and downloads, as it were. Um, so I think that I kind of walked away from all my experiences definitely going, the clock is ticking. We're on, we're close to the end, and you need to get your priorities in order. Like, it's more important to spend time with your loved ones than it is to get the bag and get that car and get that girl and get the house. That was definitely the impression that I left with. And so fast forward 10 years, and now I'm sitting here with like Logan, and you know shaking Ross Coulthart's hand and going like, what the fuck is going on? Because all these people are like hearing the same shit. And I don't know if they're taking it seriously, but, and they're not out there. Nobody explicitly told me like, yeah, this is happening, but it's known, and that is in the ethos now. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think nobody knows, right? We don't know. Just quickly, David, I was just in a space. UFO Sarah was discussing that she went to, I think she went to the LA event with Corbell and Elizondo, and I believe she said in her space that there was a back and forth between Jeremy and Elizondo, where Jeremy might be having to walk back his statement that you just discussed. Jeremy came on, several months ago now, and he said, "Hey, you're going to be told there's a mothership coming our way, and it is an absolute lie, and they're going to lie to you and say this and say that." Well, I think at this event, Corbell was talking to Elizondo, like, "Wait, am I going to have to eat crow on that statement?" And it kind of seemed like he was going to have to. I don't know what the ultimate outcome of that will be, but just to address that quickly. Um, I wanted to ask you, and then we'll go to Megan, and we have Amy and Nora up here. I'm not sure if there's going to be any questions, but I wanted to ask you, why, what is your sense on, we know that they know, but they're not telling us. All these insiders at least believe, that there's this event coming, and they're taking it pretty seriously, just looking from the outside. Why aren't they just coming out and telling us? Why don't they just spit it out? Is there like a continuity of government issue, or are they worried about mass panic, or what are your thoughts on that?
um I mean, I distinctly remember one individual, telling me about something that they had experienced. in relation to shadow beings. I think everybody's pretty familiar with those things. Um, and they just looked at me like dead in the eye, and they were like, "Do you think that that's something that the American people need to know about?" Um, and to shed some light on that, like if I'm just speaking for myself, if you are speaking for yourself, if I'm the one telling you, like, hey, there were grays in my house, like at the foot of my bed, these, UAP morphologies that Arrow officially acknowledges, they're over people's homes. Like that people don't seem to be able to put two and two together, but they know. And so it's just like they can come into your home. Now, what are they doing once they come into the home? Uh, I think we all know. We can sit here and act like we don't, or sit here and go like, well, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. They're taking people, and they're experimenting on people, and they're tinkering with people. They're messing with us. And so it was like, do you think, that was the question that was posed to me, do you think that's something we need to let the American people know? And I was like, well, I mean, not point blank, like not on a Tuesday in between like other horrible news, but I think a slow kind of acclimation process would be nice, because it is happening, but there did seem to be like some people who were just like, that's too much. Like there's too much unknown. There's no way to stop it. There's nothing. We can't give answers. We don't fully understand it. It's scary. Some people will be scared by it. Um, that line in the Men in Black movie, like, what is it? I can't remember. Something like an individual person is fine, but a group of people can become chaotic real quick. And so I do think that there's some hesitation to discuss that aspect of things. But again, it seems to be coming down the pipeline, because I've heard like people in Congress and insiders within the last month or two mention hybridization, genetic engineering, aliens may have had something to do with the creation of the human race, abductions are occurring, my labs are occurring, the military and the aliens are in bed with each other. Like all of that stuff has been on like Fox News. So I think it's coming, or I think they're kind of leaking it out a little bit here and there. Um, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's wild what I've seen on Fox News and CNN and News Nation. It's pretty wild. I actually was surprised the other day by Elizondo discussing my labs. I was like, man, I thought this was 10 years from now. We went from here's your UFOs, and now we're doing hybrids in my labs all within a week. I mean, that seems like kind of a rush program to me. Like, I don't know. I'm getting the sense that there's some kind of a timeline, a time crunch or something like that. I don't know if you get that same sense. And then I did want to ask you before we go, we'll go to Megan and then we'll see if there's any hands. Amy's up here. Um, I get asked this question all the time and I've answered it extensively, but I want to ask you, David, just getting a little glimpse on the inside without giving anything away that might get you in trouble. We've heard Semi-Van say his famous line about how the truth is indigestible. What are your thoughts on just getting a glimpse on the inside? What are your thoughts on what is indigestible? Do you think it's just that human beings are not safe in their homes at night?
You know, I don't know. Like, I do know that quote, and I know that he has had like negative experiences where he felt intruded upon, like it was invasive, it was not benevolent, it was not pleasant, it was not good. He wanted it to stop. Took measures to make it stop. But as far as like the indigestible truth, I don't know, but I do know, like there was one thing, some of the people who were there were like, scientists, mathematicians, engineers, kind of like, I don't know what their role would be, but the nerds, you got like the military people and then you got the nerdy people. And one guy just got uncomfortably close to me, like just a foot from my face, just deadpan look on his face. And I mean, the thing basically like the the stargates and the time travel stuff, like there's something to that. Like the aliens possess the ability to traverse through time, um, and they're not omniscient, but they're capable of like perceiving things ahead in time. So they know what you're going to do because they have perceived that potentiality already. So I don't know if it's that, that kind of information, just generally speaking, to the UFO community, that's nothing new. People have been hearing about that for a long time, but like to the average person who's just like posting on Instagram about their Disney vacation, who has no idea any of this is going on, I think a lot of this information, generally speaking, would be just like a wrecking ball between the eyes. Like if they were presented with this stuff, like alien abductions are real, the military knows about it, some of the aliens kill people, we can't control it. The aliens are shooting each other down, we're shooting some of the aliens down. The U.S. military industrial complex is in bed with the aliens. The aliens are hybridizing with people. The aliens have been around since before recorded history and may have made us. If you present somebody with all that information and they just got home from church and they're about to watch their favorite whatever TV show and get ready for work tomorrow, like that would be indigestible to that individual. As far as like the horrors of what's going on, I remember reading a book a long time ago from a guy who his name was Maximilian de Lafayette, and he's from Turkey. And he claims to channel the Anunnaki, which is why I think it's important that people get into like non-Westernized ufology. But anyway, in his channelings, he says that the Greys like incinerate the hybrids they don't use. So like the horrors of what's going on, like that would be indigestible to anybody. So I don't know what he's talking about in particular, but a lot of the information is already kind of out there in the public domain. But I think for the average person, it would be indigestible. And if we are currently dealing with something that is working at the behest of another presence that isn't on Earth, but en route or on Earth and hasn't revealed itself yet, I mean, that's like apocalyptic. That's like the second coming of Christ kind of stuff. Like people would lose their minds for sure. People bought all the toilet paper because of a flu virus. So if that happened, there's no telling what people would do.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny to think about. I mean, I sometimes think we're to the point where nobody would even care or nobody would believe it. Oh, this person, they must be lying and grifting disinformation, bad misinformation. It's blue beam. Nobody would even believe it. But on the other hand, yeah, if people did begin to believe it, I could totally see a complete collapse of society. I remember, and I've told this story so many times, but this moment was very profound for me. I remember being at a small town rodeo just a few years ago. I think it was 2022 when the horror of the situation was hitting me. And I realized that there is an unseen realm all around us. Now, I was raised a Christian. I always thought there was an unseen realm, but I didn't realize the horror of the situation yet. But I remember looking around and thinking, oh my gosh, none of these people have any idea that there's a there's a good possibility that abductees who have seen humans on conveyor belts being fed into the ovens for food, by the way. It could be true. And these people have no idea. And by the way, Carla Turner and Barbara Bartholic would agree with you, David, that We have abductees who have seen hybrids that are rejected being turned into milkshakes, like in a blender. So these are horrible things that are happening. I know there's an argument out there, oh, well, humans do horrible things too. But there's something terrifying about an alpha predator doing these things to us. Megan, do you want to jump in? I've got lots of questions, but I think we can go pretty much anywhere with this.
Yeah, a couple of things. So I think David's right about. I think we're both right. You two are both right. About the truth is probably more horrible than people actually realize. Because I've heard this too, and I've even had somebody who has said this, and it's funny that David mentions the toilet paper because he used the same analogy. It's like, look what happened during the pandemic of everybody hoarding toilet paper, and that was just a a virus. Can you imagine what would happen if the actual horrible truth got out, um, or they just popped into our atmosphere out of thin air? Just the chaos that would ensue. You thought the toilet paper situation was bad. What do you think would happen if this happened? And I've always thought about that, always, always. Um, and to your point, French, as well, you saying that you're at a rodeo. Well, whenever I go to a Texas Rangers baseball game, those thoughts pop into my head every time that I go. 'Cause, I mean, you've got 30, 40,000 people, at the ballpark, and I'm just looking around. It's like, I wonder how many of you actually realize the gravity of this situation, and I have to quickly, shut that down to enjoy the game. But it is absolutely mind boggling how we go through our day to day, just like I used to until I started realizing what was happening. That we go through our day to day and have no clue. And just like you, Fringe, I always knew that there was an unseen realm spiritually, but I had no idea it was so horrifying. This other
Yeah,
other realm.
horrifying and predatory,
Yes.
horrifying and predatory, and that I was always taught, if you just don't pay them any attention, they'll go away. And
Mhm.
that just turned out not to be true at all.
That's not true at all.
That's not true at
Not
all.
true at all. And so my other second point was, how David was um, talking about how, and you mentioned it too, that, this cataclysm or apocalyptic type of scenario is on the horizon. And spend more time with your family. You're not, the car's not important and everything. And it made me think back to my conversation with you and Amy in our group chat about how I was telling you all that I am being drawn to go on my vacation right now. I am being drawn to go and do everything that I've been wanting to do now that I'm retired. I'm retired, everybody. Go and do everything right now. I'm like being drawn. It's like, hurry up and get on the road. And there was this debate, this conversation, okay, well, why are you being drawn? Why now? Why all of a sudden now? Why not a year from now or 6 months from now or what have you? And is it them as in the aliens, drawing you, manipulating you to get out on the road for their own nefarious reasons? Don't know, maybe. Or is it something in the cosmos that all of us abductees are experiencing when we have these cataclysmic dreams of some type of subconscious need to go and do what you need that you've always wanted to do and do it right now? Does that make sense? So those are my two points I wanted to make about this whole thing. I think there's a lot of validity to all of this, and it's very interesting that David is talking about these certain aspects that I've heard as well, and you've heard, and it's not just because we've talked about it in the back channels. It's our own research or other people talking about it as well. So yeah, those are the 2 points I really wanted to make. Thanks.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Nora, welcome to the space. Nora, have you ever actually come up as a speaker and raised a hand in one of my spaces, Nora? Welcome.
I don't know if I have. Your
I'm
spaces
not
are
sure.
kind of scary.
They're terrifying, aren't they? I'm getting messages from our friends saying your spaces are terrifying. Because not too many people will actually tell you what is going on the ships, Nora. I will tell you, Amy will tell you, Megan will tell you, and David is here to tell you,
I'm
but there
like,
aren't too many
no,
out
don't
there
put
who
me
will
in the
tell you.
blender. They're gonna
Don't like
reject me.
stop.
They're gonna
Don't do
reject me.
CE5. You're gonna bring the shadow people home to your children. You might get abducted. You guys have no idea. I'm gonna say this quickly before Nora asks her question. I like to say this out loud every once in a while. I will never say any of your names, so do not be terrified in this moment. The number of people who write to me and tell me what's happening to them, even though they're in spaces and in their posts and in their fake Twitter life, they go out and tell people, do CE5, raise your vibration. We're all going to the new heaven and earth with Dolores Cannon and Elizabeth April and Bashar. All of these people, I cannot tell you the number of people who write to me privately and say, oh, by the way, I got abducted last night, or my kid got abducted last night, or I brought the shadow people home to my family. All these terrifying things that are happening in the back channels that these people will not speak to in public. You can always count on me and Amy and Megan, and now David's popped up to tell you what's actually happening. Nora, welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah. First I just wanted to say hi, David. It's been so long since I've heard your voice in spaces. I was actually really surprised to see you doing a space. So I'm glad you're here. And funny enough, I came home and I reached for a comfy t-shirt, and it's one of my Manuk shirts that you sent me. So love the shirts. They're great. If you sell them, you should drop a link so people can check them out because it has some cool artwork on there. But yeah, all the you guys were mentioning, earlier, like why hasn't disclosure gotten to the like abduction portion? And one of the things that you touched on is, do they have like an after plan for that? Like, let's say, they do talk about the abduction phenomenon. Are they going to offer some kind of help for the people? Like, is there anything that can help, like strengthening your like psychic body, or like any other like things that you guys have done? I don't know, like crystals or random shit, like, the iron thing, calling out to Jesus. You guys have heard it all, I'm sure, because you're ahead of the game in this subject. So yeah, that is like something I think that we might never really, they don't have like a solid answer to, like, yeah, like X, Y, and Z like works. So this is what you guys need to do. So we'll probably wouldn't really be getting that type of disclosure, I think. What do you think?
David, did you want to
Yeah.
jump in?
Uh, hey Nora. Let me think here. Yeah, I haven't been here because I got scared off. I got spooked, literally. So I'm being watched, and it's not because I'm schizophrenic, because I was told that I'm being watched. So let me think. I think that what I said earlier and what you said is kind of what's going on, because I had like somebody who worked for Lockheed, like not in like a super secret, you know, position where they're like dissecting UFOs, but he works for Lockheed and he's well connected. Like he asked me to get him information because he had a friend who was in the United States intelligence, one of the agencies, who was having negative experiences with aliens, and they wanted me to help give them advice on how to get rid of them. I was like, y'all are calling me. I was like, y'all are hurting. So I don't think my point is like, like yeah. So I'm like, I don't think that they really have any idea. And there was a podcast with 𝗓𝗓𝗶𝘁𝗶𝘁 where he was kind of discussing his methods on pushing back, and my name got brought up. And I mean, I haven't had any negative experiences in a while. I don't really, I've seen orbs, and it recently came to my attention that two of my daughters have seen orbs in the last couple of years, like close encounters with orbs, which that kind of set me on edge a little bit. And again, you know, they don't really want to have anything to do with all this. Um,
Does it travel with you from house to house, or does it matter where you're staying?
no, I don't think it matters where I'm staying. But I haven't been looking for it, and I haven't seen it. Um, so, and I'm okay with that. Like, I don't think people really understand how ominous this is. Like, I'm kind of down with the idea that some of the UFOs and some of the aliens are benevolent. I think that's kind of understood, but for the most part, it's just not. It's it's ominous. I do think that like that predatory term is kind of pretty apt, because I'm not going to necessarily say I know what they're up to and what they're doing. I feel like I have a good idea, but when they come around, like when it's not just a little dancing orb that's making you feel some kind of way, like it's pretty ominous. So I think people on the inside know that that's going on, um, but they just don't know how to deal with it. Or I think, I mean, it was addressed like publicly that some of the military is in on it, like they're involved in the abductions or they're watching the abductions take place. Like there's some kind of partnership between the military industrial complex and the aliens. And I remember asking John Ramirez, and I don't know how well connected he is or how much information is like known to him, but you don't work in the CIA for 25 years if you're just like a meth head. So he, you know, I asked him about the Greys. I was like, do you think that they're helping us or do you think they're helping themselves? And he was like, I think they're helping themselves. And he said it's his understanding that we leave them alone and they leave us alone. You know, and I don't know if that's like official word on the street, but that whole kind of vibe, because I do feel like it's them that's mainly involved in the abductions. I don't know. But the vibe is that it's like it can't really be controlled, even though I do feel like I had some control over it. And Jesus was involved, unfortunately. I know a lot of people hear that. They're like, well, I'm out. But yeah, I'll stop talking.
Thanks, Nora. Let's see. What did you ask? Is there anything we can do? It's my understanding that there's at least some faction of the military-industrial complex that does have technology to mitigate abductions. I have not been able to get my hands on it. I have not been able to get anyone to discuss it. It's apparently classified, so there's that. Um, they seem to be withholding. Was it? Gosh, was it Blitch who might have commented on this? I think I posted about it several days ago. Blitch says that we have technology that can stop it. That was a public statement, but I hear privately that we do have technology that can help stop abductions. They're not sharing it with us, Nora. They don't care about me or Carolyn or Amy or David and our kids and grandkids. They're keeping that for themselves for whatever reason. This would be something that if it could be mass produced would be great. Like if they come out and say, by the way, there are predators on the planet who can snatch you and your kids out of their beds at night, but don't worry, here, just buy this and you're good. But to answer your question, Nora, I have tried just about everything there was, including sleeping in a helmet for 7 months. All the crystals, all the iron, all the Jesus. By the way, I do think a long-term prayer and allegiance campaign is in order for any abductee, because I think ultimately there are at least two sides in this cosmic war, and our souls are at stake here. So I definitely believe in prayer. Um, However, I think what Megan and Amy and I will say is what we have found the most effective is a certain type of cameras. And I also have a MADAR device. And I found those to be fairly effective. It's not 100% effective. And then when I went traveling in February, I didn't have my MADAR device and my camera I was plugged in and it has a battery backup. But unfortunately, that plug, I didn't know, unbeknownst to me, I was staying at an Airbnb, the battery died. And that night I had an abduction experience. So these things are not infallible. I mean, if they wanted to, they could just shut the cameras down and come in anyway. But with the abduction phenomenon, they're always looking for, maintaining, Amy calls it security. They want to be covert. They want to maintain plausible deniability. So they're not going to just turn your camera off 3 days in a row for an abduction. So I have found that a certain type of camera that Amy recommends to be effective. I now have a battery backup on my battery backup camera. I now have two cameras. So I have a camera, a continuous recording camera that's watching me sleep at night. And I have another camera and they kind of see each other too. So to make sure one camera is not getting messed with, I have a MADAR device. Outside my home, I have 17 cameras now, hardwired with a battery backup around my home, covering every single window and door, etc. So that has been the most effective for me. But remember that abductions can also happen, during the middle of the day when there's no cameras and you're just driving to the gym. So I'm not aware of a single thing that is 100% effective in stopping these predators from snatching us out of our environment and into theirs. Megan or Amy, did you want to comment on that for Nora?
I think cameras are your number one friend, personally. Um, Prayer for sure. Because once I started doing my prayer campaign with, and finally got the camera that we really need, um, things started to really die down a lot. Um, is it foolproof? No, no, because I only live here. I live with my daughter and her family, so I have my own bedroom. My bedroom's covered, but I can't put cameras out in the main area. Um, so I still get, I still I still get missing time if I go out into the commons area, the big part of the house, and they're not here. My family's not here. From time to time, or when I was working, things like that. But I think the cameras and the prayer are your two biggest helpful aids in mitigation.
Do
I'd
you
be
ever
surprised.
leave on like a sound like prayer like playing like in a loop like a YouTube video or something like just like playing like using sound as a deterrent?
Sometimes I will use like I'll turn on Pandora to my Christian stations and my Christian radio, and I'll listen to that. Yeah, I'll listen to that or country music, but it's primarily just the Christian music that I turn on. It's not all the time. but I do that. Um, I've had mixed results, to be honest. But if I really think that I need something a little extra, like an extra boost, I'll put on my Christian music. But I play Christian music every day. So well, I try to anyway. But out of a 7 day week, I listen to it 5 days a week. So, and I think that helps too. I mean, it just could be my perception that it's helping. But again, the continuous prayers and the cameras, I think, are the two biggest um, mitigation techniques. That has been for me.
Yeah, on that sound thing, and we'll go to Amy if she wants to jump in on this one, since she has a lot of information on these effing things. On the sound thing, I don't, I was told by a physicist quite some time ago. It's one of the suggestions I have on my website is to play worship music if possible, and if you are anti-worship music, to put on country music for whatever reason. And the whole idea behind this, it also goes along with leaving a light on, which I sleep with a light on. I'm not sure if that's just a comfort thing or what, but the physicist had determined that if we play audible music that is audible and or leave a television on, but nothing like horror show or anything, it has to be pretty benign. But if we can have some kind of a sound that is entertaining the mind while we sleep, we can actually keep these entities from being able to paralyze us. Now, I haven't ever found that to be 100%. When I was going through my really bad time in 2023, before I got the helmet material, I was sleeping with a headband on and I was playing music frequencies through the headband, and it did seem to help a little bit. And his whole idea was that if you can keep your mind awake and active and out of theta, I think is what he was trying to do. Keep the mind out of theta, that they wouldn't be able to paralyze you. But that does work for some people, not for
You,
everyone. Go ahead. Amy, is that you? Jump in.
Fringe, you already know what I'm going to say about that, right?
Just jump in. Just vomit it all out,
Okay.
Amy.
I think it's a very, very bad idea to mess with your brainwaves, especially through sleep, because you want your brain is that naturally going to go through all these different brain states, and it's for its own health. So if you're trying to prevent it from going into delta, theta, or whatever, you're going to disrupt your sleep. It's very, 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 very bad for you.
Amy, you are super rugging. Do you have service? You never have
Oh, am I?
service, Amy. What is the deal?
I'm in the mountains.
You're always in
I'm
the
sorry.
mountains. Don't have service. Amy is trying to say, don't do any of the things that can disrupt your sleep for a long period because it's not good for your health. And she's absolutely right. And I usually recommend these things as an emergency. Like if you're having a crisis and you're in an emergency and you're going to be sleeping, you're going to be trying to stay awake all night anyway. Maybe try some of these things. You're right, Amy. All right, let's see if you're still rugging. Go ahead. Amy, you are a disaster.
What?
Can you please find a signal? Please. The people need to hear what you have to say.
I have 4 bars. 4.
Are you on your car speaker?
She's on no speaker, Carolyn. I can't hear anything. There's no speaker. Oh, she's popping out. All right.
Okay, she's
Uh,
gonna come back. It makes me wonder though, Fringe, if Mario is having success sleeping with his Haven beanie.
all right. And that is so crazy. So I don't know if I've told the story before, but okay, this beanie that Mario seems to be having some success with. So we got to put that out there for sure. One of my worst experiences of my life was when I was wearing one of those Mission Darkness. No, it wasn't the Mission Darkness beanie. I was wearing just some baklava that I got on Amazon that said it protected from EMF. Okay, Amy, jump in.
Oh, sorry, I don't want to
Oh,
finish your thought.
No, you're
no,
good.
I don't
We
want
can
to
hear you.
interrupt.
Go ahead.
no, you're good. Go, go.
It's because I was plugged to my car. Sorry. So yeah, don't like long term. Very not good idea to disrupt your sleep cycle. I personally, I don't have any sound or even light on, but that's just my preference. It has to be super dark, super quiet. I think one of the reasons being that and I actually travel a lot, and when I'm sleeping, like, out in the woods, I want it to be super, super quiet because I want to hear any kind of animal that's approaching, or human, or alien, or hybrid, or whatever. So for me, like, that's just I've been like that ever since I was a kid. I always wanted it dark and quiet. But as far as the preventive measures, I found that Joseph's discs, Joseph O'Reilly on Twitter, he created a disc and he put a bunch of compounds in there like a resin. And I've tested it extensively, and those work pretty well. The downside is you have to wear a hat all the time, which is no fun for especially ladies. We like our hair. So yeah, there's that. And then I sometimes will use a voice recorder, and then I'm in my car a lot, like sleeping in my car. So I have like ways to kind of like strap the doors and the hatch and all this stuff. So you can like get creative, and then if you compound, like add different preventative measures, they're way less likely to come and mess with you. Like one thing is a problem for them, but if you add like two, three things on top of that, they're not gonna do it. Like unless they're really, really motivated.
Thanks, Amy. I think that's important too. That's kind of what I ended up doing. So in February, when they allegedly gave me some deadly disease, was my last like major abduction event was in February, where they said that they were killing me off, and now we don't know if that's true or not, but that's what actually happened. I went from, one camera in my bedroom to the camera with a backup battery pack plugged into it. And then I ended up adding another camera to watch that camera. And that one's continuous record, so it doesn't rely just on a motion sensor. So it's when we're adding, a few different layers. And then when I got home, then I had my MADAR device. And none of those things might be 100% preventing anything. But when you start adding them all together, the plausible deniability of all of those going out, it goes down. And when you have a camera watching the camera, well, you can't unplug it or have it go out when it's being watched. So it's just like Amy said, adding layers. David, did you want to jump in on any of that?
Yeah, and I, I'll preface this by saying that, like, I'm the kind of person who's just like looking under every stone, like, leaving no stone unturned in terms of solutions or information. And I have like a lot of thoughts going right now. Um, but either it can be stopped or it cannot. Like the abducting of people, uh, non human intelligences entering your home. So it either can be prevented or it cannot. Um, I was told that it's believed, and this is not like super deep insider information, but it's believed that the aliens, the Greys, um, mess with people like the way we do with a dog. Like you pretend to throw a tennis ball, and the dog's like, "Where's the ball?" And we think it's hilarious, and the dog is just like, what?" That they do similar things to us because I don't know, it's amusing to them because we're not as smart as they are. Um, for whatever reason. So I was told that information. And for me, I do feel like I got it to stop. And it has something to do with your electromagnetic field can be encoded with psychological information. You're psychic. The aliens are psychic. So there has to be some kind of psychic pushback against their psychic attacks. And I did everything. I had people that were indigenous ancestry come out to the house and smudge it. I had people make me organite and bury it around the house. I had shamans come out to the house. I was anointed with oil. Like, I went through the ringer because I wanted it to stop. And I'll put a pin in that and say, like, anybody who wants contact or who wants CE5, all this kind of stuff, people are like, I hear it's scary. I'm like, this is not a roller coaster. It's not like a thrilling thing that you're just like gonna get accustomed to. Like, this is, it's scary. Like, I don't want to be over dramatic, but like, it's really scary. So, ultimately, I did ask Christ. I ended up, like, at the end of the road was like asking for help. Like, if there's any other non-human intelligences that are benevolent, like, help me. Angels, whatever you want to call them, help Christ, God, somebody, like, make this stop. And that was when it started to, like, I started to get some control over it. And that's something I discussed in the interviews. And I discussed that with John Ramirez. He was totally on board. I discussed that with some people who, the guy who worked with Lockheed. He heard me out. He was totally on board. It's like, these concepts were not foreign to these people. And what worries me a little bit is the idea that it might not actually work, but they want you to think that it works. And that kind of, like, disturbs me a little bit. And then that goes back to, like, having no control over this. And just kind of being, like Lou Elizondo said, like, not the apex predator. But I don't feel plagued by it anymore. I think there's something to be said about disconnecting from just the entire topic altogether. That kind of helps in, like, shielding you from it and easing your mind. But I do worry that, like, if you're on the agenda, whatever they're doing, if it's gonna be done, they're gonna do it to you. And I personally I can't share it, but have evidence of, like, abduction, like photographs that I have received, that I have shown people. So they do come in, they put their hands on people. This isn't purely metaphysical. I think there's an argument that it is, but you know that's my fear. And then I'll say one thing real quick, that there are plenty of cases. One in particular is the 1976 Tehran incident. It was basically an orb. It was a high altitude orb. They thought it was a star, but it was moving and it seemed closer than a star. So what we would know as an orb, they sent two jets out to it. It was like one of the rectangular shaped UFOs, and it deployed two smaller UFOs. There was a case in Japan where an orange orb landed, and it was one of these beings that had, like, the long arms and the big ears, just like the one in Kentucky. Same thing, orange orb. So when you're calling the orbs in, I think there's enough cases that indicate that the orbs are the craft or the beings, but in some kind of alternate form, or they're interacting with the atmosphere in some way that makes it look like an orb. But just be real careful when you're doing that, when you're doing the CE5 and drawing those things in, because you may be kind of like sending a telepathic signal out to whatever UFO is in the area, and it just stops and goes, oh, okay. And then now you've got a problem. So anyway, I'll stop there.
Yeah, that was great, David. Thank you. Bartimaeus?
Hi, Fringe. Thanks. Something I found very interesting of note, in experiences I've had, I've called out on the name of Jesus Christ and things have stopped. But I took particular note. I assume everyone here would be aware of who Linda Moulton Howe is in this field. And in the late 90s, she was out here in Australia doing a conference and did a Q&A at the end of the conference. And one person asked the question, why is it when people are going through an abduction experience and they've called out for help on the name of Jesus Christ and the abduction experience has stopped? And her response was, I do not know why that is happening, but I've heard of many cases where that's happened. And she said that's something that she needs to look further into. Coming from someone of her pedigree, for lack of a better term, I found that very interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, it's an interesting topic all the way around. Since David brought it up, I think we could go into it. I mean, there's any number of reasons why it might or might not work. I think that to one of David's earlier points for myself, I have come to the realization using these cameras, especially, that I think this contact, especially from things like the grays and these hybrids, is much more physical than I ever wanted to accept. I've gone back and forth, like, oh my gosh, there's no way that was physical. That had to have been either virtual reality, or it had to have just been happening in my mind, and or just like an astral or soul abduction. But when I realized that putting these cameras up and having redundant cameras and having redundant backup systems and the MADAR and stuff like that was being effective, it could be, to David's point, maybe they're treating me, like a dog when you fake that you throw the ball, or maybe they want me to think it's effective and it really isn't. That those are all possibilities that have to stay on the table. When I realized that it seemed to be effective, and I'm talking about over, days and weeks at a time, and then suddenly I'm without that system, and I'm getting snatched and given some crazy disease, supposedly. I think it could be more physical than anybody's really comfortable with accepting. And then when it comes to prayer, I have found long-term prayer campaign and almost a ritualistic prayer campaign to be more effective than calling out in the moment. Number one, and Megan likes to go over this. Number one, if you do not catch this before you're paralyzed, good luck. Good luck calling out at all. Number two, once you're under mind control, you're not even thinking about Jesus. And I'm sorry to say that, and Christians will hate me for that. They'll say I'm not a Christian or that I don't have faith. But good luck thinking about Jesus when you're under the mind control of the aliens. So a few different things. Number one, when it comes to the grays and the hybrids, especially, we're dealing with physical entities, and I don't think we are able to pray them away at any higher or lesser of a rate than we could pray away something like human trafficking or a sexual assault happening by gang members on the street. So I think, and Tom Montag has pointed this out before. I'm not sure, Ganga would probably agree with this. Ganga, if you want to drop some wisdom in the purple pill, I'd love to hear from you. There are probably entities out there in the spectrum on the hierarchy that will respond to the name of Jesus, like Jesus casting out demons in the New Testament. But there are other creatures like the Greys. That are more physical, and they're going to behave much more like a human trafficking ring. Could you pray away getting snatched by a human trafficking ring? Absolutely. Miracles happen every day. Some random intervention could happen, just like, you hear about people who never got on the plane for 9/11 or never showed up at work, for those incidents. So, yes, miracles happen, and Jesus can stop you from being abducted on any given Sunday. However, the natural order of things is when a physical entity is going to interfere with you in the physical environment, they're probably going to do it and get away with it. Um, so they're using their physical, and they're using advanced technology. Technology probably not going to respond to the name of Jesus. Again, are we, if we're looking for a miracle, could that happen? Yes, but generally speaking, probably not. And then Tom talks about something called occult mimicry of the alien abduction phenomenon. So if you have occult mimicry, if you have demons acting like aliens and pretending to be aliens and showing you aliens, but they're not really aliens, so they're not really physical. Perhaps that is an instance where that could be prayed away and they would respond. And then, you have my labs. My labs, humans, again, these physical, more physical entities, and this is what Christians have a problem with. The more physical entities and or my labs. If you have humans snatching you out of your bed at night, I don't think they're going to respond to the name of Jesus outside of that miracle that I already spoke about. So those are just a couple of things. I personally believe that these specific entities we refer to as aliens, I'm talking about the Mantids, the Nordics, the Greys, and their hybrids, they were created for this purpose. Like they were created for the purpose of carrying out at this time. Right now, the agenda seems to be abductions and creating hybrids. What they're going to do with them, I don't know. Um, but I think they were created for the purpose, for their purpose. And so I think they were created to circumvent any spiritual laws that might be out there protecting us. I know that sounds terrible and kind of sad, but that's just what I think. When it comes to prayer, though, I do think, and me and Megan have talked about this, and anybody can jump in and give an opinion on this. It seems to me, and this is just my perception of a few things that I've become aware of, that specifically worship music, and I mean like praise worship music, not I'm a Christian, I'm a Christian, I'm a Christian, but praise music seems to draw in actual benevolent entities. And maybe they come there, to protect us, or maybe I don't even know why they would respond to that, other than maybe it makes them happy. I don't know. Maybe they want to be in an environment where worship music is being sung or played, which I think can be helpful when it comes to having these negative entities around. So, Bartimaeus, go ahead.
Yeah, just on what you're saying about human snatching. Many years ago, I ran a mailing list and I had a US gentleman join the mailing list that contributed quite a lot. Now, to this day, one day he just suddenly disappeared, and I spent a long time trying to get in contact with him, and to this day, there's been no response. I cannot confirm whether this person was a legitimate abductee or if he was a government plant. But he did say something I found very interesting, that a lot of the abductee experience, he said, people think they are being taken by aliens and put on craft, where in fact it was all part of like MK Ultra, for lack of a better term. And they're actually being, as you said, being abducted by humans, and they weren't being put on craft. They were actually taken to a dump. Unfortunately, as I said, I've never been able to confirm this person, but I found his information in this regard interesting.
Yeah, I think that that's probably true. I mean, we have a lot of evidence, even though it's anecdotal, for the most part, of my labs. We have military industrial complex re-kidnapping alien abductees for a variety of different reasons. I think that is happening. And then we have the joint programs where we have the humans working side by side with the aliens. That's noted throughout the abduction research. And then to your point, Bartimaeus, there is something that we call virtual reality. And I think it was Carla Turner who first came up with this term, where the aliens, now you can be abducted on a ship and the aliens can make you see something in virtual reality that isn't really there. I just talked to a gal just a week ago who had a gray standing in front of her and looking into her eyes. She was abducted. She was on a ship. I'm going to stop calling them spaceships. I'm not even convinced they're going to space. Maybe. So she was on a ship, and so she was abducted and out of her physical environment, but the gray looked into her eyes and put her into a virtual reality scenario that wasn't happening. It wasn't happening at all. And they do this all the time. And so this can also happen bedside. Like you can just be in your bed minding your own business in the middle of a dream, and any one of these NHI can put you into a virtual reality scenario that you will not know any different. You won't even realize it's not your own dream. And then on the ships, when they put you in virtual reality, you believe it's real. Like you actually believe that whatever that scenario is that's happening. So many different things are happening. Um, I also wanted to entertain this idea, 𝗓𝗁𝗂, and this is something that especially Christians will push back on. The abduction research shows that for the most part, abductees are only remembering the beginning and or the ending of the incident. So a lot of abductees remember the paralysis in the beginning of an incident. They might see a creature, they might see a light, they might hear a noise or hear a flash of light, but next thing they know, they're paralyzed. And then their next memory is waking up back in their bed, and they don't even know what happened in between. And so some of these instances where people are calling out to Christ, it's entirely possible that they called out to Christ and believed that abduction stopped, but it really didn't. And so there's so many things that could be happening, including calling out to Christ and it actually working. I never take that off the table. I think any one of us can pray and I call it a miracle because it's just outside the natural law. It would be outside the natural law for a gray to stop an abduction task that he's supposed to accomplish. But I believe that anybody can pray and get a response from God and get a supernatural, miraculous intervention. So I don't ever take that off the table. But just in discussing the many things that could be happening during the abduction scenario, I know for me, if I know they're coming and I know I'm about to be paralyzed, I have my own technique that I go through to get out of being paralyzed. But they will come back and they'll try again. And then I'm always aware that even though that technique appeared to work, it's a possibility that it didn't work. And my mind has just been seeded with some nonsense memory or a screen memory because they do that as well. So it's complicated, you guys. It's complicated. Jumping, Carolyn, Megan, Megan, Carolyn.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Okay, so I have someone in the audience who wanted me to ask a question to David, and the question is, David, can you please ask what David thinks the June 19th will result in? And this is where 𝗓𝘁𝗶𝘁𝗃 is speaking on Capitol Hill.
Oh, I mean, I have no idea. I kind of feel like that is he's just going to kind of make a public demonstration um that's going to reiterate things he already discussed. Just kind of calling the president to action, I guess, or trying to get somebody to come to action. But I do know that uh I was told that David Grush is the real deal, and at the time his testimony was about the closest thing we've gotten to disclosure thus far. And I mean, I think it's public information now, but when I was chatting with Logan, I remember, and it was just like an eerie feeling, but he said that somebody broke into David's house twice and rearranged all the furniture, and then also left sniper bullets on his windowsill and then regular bullets at his doorstep. So for some reason, people don't think that that's real or to be taken seriously, but you have to remember what Grush has said and what he has testified to. And when he gave his testimony, he put onto congressional record his interview with Ross Coulthart, where he did say aliens have murdered people. The military has made agreements with aliens. Some of the aliens are not benevolent. So he's laid out a lot, and he's paid the price for it. But I don't know in particular what he's going to discuss on the 19th.
Great. Thank you so much.
David, what are your thoughts on so it's my impression that this upper echelon of ufology, these bigger names, um, know exactly what this is, and by that I mean that they understand that this is a spiritual war, a cosmic war, a battle for the human soul, battle against good and evil. Um, that type of thing. And even though that in public they call, especially Christians, but religious people, just ignorant hillbillies, and we have no idea what we're talking about. They actually know. They just don't want to say it in public because their reputation, might suffer. What are your thoughts on that? Just having a little bit of an inside peek.
Um, all the same discussions that are had in spaces and on UFO Twitter are had amongst them. So they're all aware of all of it and have all of their own opinions. But I think that, um, personally speaking, just from my own experiences, I'm always torn. I'm either torn between like they really did make us. This is some kind of ant farm. None of the religions are true, and this is just some kind of bleak matrix scenario. But instead of robots, it's aliens. Or it is spiritual warfare, and this is like good versus evil, uh, trying to control humanity. Some of them want to free humanity. Some of them want to enslave humanity. Some of them are like vampirically existing off of us. Some of them are onlooking. Um, but I know that, like, just as a tangent, real quick, that like serious people, very intelligent, very professional, very serious people are putting together what will be like experiencer onboarding questionnaire type things. And I'm on board with that kind of thing, but they're trying to determine the intentions of the aliens, like the different types of aliens, their intentions, what they're doing, and how to defend against it. Like that is part of what's being studied. Like, I don't know how it's already happening. It's not like it's going to happen 10 years from now. It's already happening. And so, you know, they're they're trying to figure out, just like we're trying to figure out what this is, what the intentions are, if it can be stopped, how to stop it. And I remember a long time ago, before all these discussions were being had publicly, like if these craft can be taken down, if they can know who's in what craft, then take them down. Like stop the abductions from happening. Like, you know, that's not something we should have to live through. And so I remember hearing like when they were like, yeah, we can take some of these craft down. And then when I was talking to somebody who was like, again, like I'm a little paranoid saying this stuff, so I don't know. I think I'll be okay, but I won't say who it was, but he would like look over his shoulder, like with some hesitation and say, like, we're trying to figure out what craft have the reptiles in them and what craft have the grays in them. And then, I hear talk about how we can take some of the craft down. And I know there were people who would be aghast at this idea, but I'm just like, good, take them down. like, this is like, this is a pest problem. It's like having an infestation of insects. That's a problem. But, you don't want to start some kind of retaliation. And I know that sounds insane. Like you're talking about like Star Wars, but I don't know. I'm kind of going off on a tangent there.
Yeah, keep going. I just want to hear you thinking out loud, David.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was a point because I think people have just no idea how serious this is. Like, the aliens can mess with your head. So when you communicate with them, when you see them, when you encounter them, you cannot take anything that's going on at face value. So if you felt all warm and fuzzy, that's great. And that may have been a benevolent alien. But there's also a chance it was not benevolent, it was messing with you, and you literally got taken advantage of. And now you are spreading a false, quote unquote, gospel about benevolent aliens who have come to save us when you're just the messenger of a deception, and now they're getting away with it. And I think people have got to wrap their heads around that. Like, they have got to. Early in my research, and this was when I was having like aliens in my house and the craft over my house, I had no idea what was going on. But I was going on like a research rabbit hole, and I ran across Stephen Greer. I didn't know who he was from anybody, and it doesn't matter to me because I'm not in ufology. I don't care. I just want answers. And as soon as he said like aliens don't abduct people, I was like, well, this guy's full of shit. I just immediately just checked out, did not give him any time of day. And I still feel that way. And he's pushing this narrative that like the government has built the Greys and they're little robots that the Air Force is using, and the CIA is in the bushes with lasers and smoke. And there's no aliens abducting people because they're all here to sing Kumbaya and give us free energy, and we're gonna ascend to 5D. And I'm like, no, just like that's absolutely not happening. And the people who are coming out now from like the UAP task force, they know that. And they're not trying to scare anybody. It's not, and then the Bledsoes have a similar message. I think the Bledsoes had contact. I have no problem with them. Ryan's a musician, I'm a musician, I'm sure we could jam together. I have no problem with them as people, but I think that they had contact and they were lied to by whatever contacted them. And none of that's going to happen because it's just lies from the aliens because they got abducted. And that's just my knee jerk reaction. So, I this conversation we're having, like, the people on the inside are having these same conversations. They're aware of all of this, but you can't just say it in the mainstream and not have some kind of like, okay, now what? Like, so they're trying to figure it out. And they're going to be stringent about it, they're going to be scientific about it, but they're trying to figure out like, okay, that craft, what's in it? A reptile? Okay, what are the reptilians doing? Can we trust them? Are they negative? The great, so on and so forth. And what are they communicating with people? Is this experiencer trustworthy? Are they lying? Did they imagine it? Is this trust? Okay, so now we're going to follow that because you don't have much to go on. Because, like you said, most people, they see the craft, they see the orb, they see the alien, and then it's just like blackout. And then it's 3 hours later, you're in your bed, and you don't know what happened. And there's marks on your body, and there's blood on the sheets, and you're in a cold sweat. And what happened? No, and you don't know. And so, how do you know? How do you find out? Well, there's only one way, and that is the regressive hypnosis. Because ultimately, the aliens are the only ones that are going to be able to answer a lot of these questions that people have. So you have to find somebody that has communicated with the aliens. But then some of the aliens are lying. Just like I said, they're throwing the ball and the dog's like, where'd the ball go? Like, some of them are messing with us. And so it's just a huge mess. And nobody really knows how to publicly address that. I'll stop.
Yeah, that was great, David. Thank you. Amy, did you want to comment on any of this? What are your thoughts on
Um,
these aliens lying to us and snatching us out of our beds and sexually assaulting people on the ships?
yeah, so they're incredible. By the way, David, just to randomly mention, I think it was like last week like randomly was like, wait a second, I haven't seen you in a long time on Twitter on the feed, and I don't know if my feed just got like jammed up with crap or what, but it's nice to see you back. So yeah, they definitely lie. They're really, really good at manipulating and playing kind of like the long game, honestly. Um, at least based on the regressions that it started about like 2022. I got assigned to a new hybrid, a new situation. I used to be assigned to a security hybrid who was extremely abusive, and I just had bruises after bruises after bruises. And he had a specific MO as to where he would bruise, what kind of pain he would cause. And then I got switched to this new guy who had a completely different MO, and his agenda was to be nice. For some, I don't trust them. So for some nefarious reason, they're being really, really nice to me all of a sudden. And so, and it's been like he started to show his true colors like like maybe 2 years ago, but it was a long time before he finally snapped. So, and snapped because I'm not playing his game, right? So that should tell you a lot about how patient they are, to a degree, and how when they have an agenda, how far they will go to make you feel like, oh, I can trust this person. But eventually they snap when they notice that you're not playing along. So that's something to really keep in mind. Like, you cannot just assume just because you're feeling fuzzy and they're saying nice things that they're good people, or whatever they are. So just that's my major, major uh warning, I guess, to anyone.
Thanks, Amy. I think here's my threshold. If you are snatching me out of my bed at night against my will without knocking on the front door, offering me a whole lot of cash and telling me exactly what's about to happen, it's not okay with me. Like, how do we even have people in this community who are still entertaining the possibility that these things have our best interest in mind? I don't even know how that is still happening. So yeah, if you're taking me or my child, by the way, out of my home without explicit informed consent, you are the bad guy. And guess what? I don't care why you're doing it. I don't care what your I don't care if you have a good motive. I don't care if you have a good motive. I don't care if you're about to eat us for breakfast. It doesn't matter to me why you're doing it. Just that you're doing it means it's not okay. So that really should be our threshold right there, right? It's not okay to take humans out of their beds at night without explicit informed consent. And so that we even have it's good to hear, David, that the insiders are aware of what's going on and that they don't think it's good. That's good, but I think we do have some insiders who not only know it's not good, they've made agreements with these entities, and they're in exchange for technology and power, etc. They're turning a blind eye to it. And then I think we do have a faction of insiders who believe this is actually benevolent, and people like me just don't understand because the entities are so highly evolved. It's like taking your cat to the vet, and I'm just not capable of understanding that. And that really they have our good in mind, and they would just want to send us to the 5D. So it seems like there's probably a mix behind the scenes, but it's good to hear that at least some of them are aware of abductions and what's going on, and maybe hopefully trying to work on the problem. I hold out hope that we have a faction of humans somewhere trying to work on technology and trying to work on this problem of defending us against these things. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I just had a thought while you were talking, um, that the idea that it's like a cat going to the vet or a dog being taken to the vet. And when people say that to me, my initial reaction is just like, well, I'm not a dog. Like there, you know, there's levels of consciousness in all sentience on Earth. You know, I think it has something to do with DNA. There's a certain bandwidth of awareness that you can have. You know, like a dog is not as conscious as I am. It's conscious. It's not as conscious as I am. You know, the aliens are more conscious than we are. However, I think in my case, in a lot of cases, and I'm just speaking for myself and from the research I've done, that these aliens are capable of communicating. They can speak your language and they withhold information. That is a consistent through line in a lot of credible close encounter cases, is that the grays, namely, they withhold information. So withholding information is a lie of omission. So even most people think of the word lie and they think fabrication, but there's different types of lies. So a lie of omission is still a lie, and that's a manipulative kind of lie. So, you know, for whatever reason, I think it's because they are not invulnerable. I think they can die. I think their craft can be taken down. So they are taking measures. And the idea that, you know, they're just covering their own back because humans are so awful and will hurt them. And they was like, no, they're skulking around. They're sneaking. They're lying. They're manipulating. They have technology that can alter your mind, that can alter what you're perceiving. A lot of what they're doing is covering their own backs at our expense. And again, not all the aliens, but some of them are definitely up to some kind of cloak and dagger kind of stuff. But um yeah, I mean they lie. So I kind of lost my train of thought there, but
Yeah, that's all I need to hear. Yes, they lie. They lie, David. Here's what's weird. It's only a very small percentage of abductees who end up seeing through this stuff. You kind of told your story back in a space with Bridget, which was the post actually that prompted us to get together today. You mentioned something about how they kind of invoke this prime directive where they can't interfere with your free will when you're asking them the really good questions. But at the same time, when you want to exert your free will and say, stop snatching me and my wife and kids out of their beds at night. Oh, well, wait a minute, wait a minute. I'm not talking about that kind of free will. That's going, just a step too far. So I love all the games they play. And I think it's really, really difficult to come out the other side of that mind control and the propaganda that they feed us and come out the other side and be able to come into a space and just say, hey, you guys, I've been there. I've already been through this. I've already seen the inside. I've already seen what they do, and they're lying. They lie, steal, cheat, manipulate. And there's nothing good, in my personal opinion, there's nothing good coming out of this. It's hard to do that. We have one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight of us in a single space right now who were able to see what was going on and come out the other side and try to warn people that this is not good, whatever they have planned. I wanted to ask you, David, what do you think they're doing? Like, what do they have planned? What are they doing? They appear to be creating hybrids. What do you think the end game is? What are they doing with these hybrids? I mentioned earlier, very cavalierly spoke about some of these hybrids, not quite passing muster, and they end up maybe in the wood chipper. I mean, it's horrible to put it that way, but that seems to be what's going on. That's what the abduction research shows. But what do you think they're doing with the rest of them? And by the way, this is a sensitive topic. These are our kids. Like these are part human. These are part human kids. Probably everyone I spoke about in this room has at least one, probably more like a dozen, um, having contributed to this hybrid breeding program against our will. These are part ours. Like, and I say part, it's kind of really weird. I don't know how you feel about this, David, but a human parent with a human child, I never hear anyone of them say, "Oh, that the child is only part mine or half mine or kind of mine. It's all mine. Like I'm the parent, that's my child if I'm the mother." And then the father will say the same thing, "I'm the parent, that's my child." But when it comes to the hybrid breeding program, my feeling is the child is mine, but not mine. Like it's only partly mine. It's not fully mine. It's just a really weird thing. What are your thoughts there?
Um, I think the hybrid situation is really complex. Trying to think back to the initial point you made in that about like what the aliens are doing, and I don't know. Like I think the people. I think that there's good reason to think, and it's not just like the meth heads by the garbage, you know, like coming up with this stuff. But people, us, the insiders, think that this is some sort of takeover, like a planetary acquisition. Um, and they're doing it through like us, or if that, I don't know quite how to put it, but it's like they want to control the planet, they want to control us. So the way they're doing things is not the way we would do things. Like if we would think about conquering something, we bring weapons, we take it by force. You know, that's how humans do it. I think they may do it in a different way, a little bit more covert, a little more subtle. But I don't think that that's like too far fetched of an idea. But as far as like the hybrid program goes, if I only speak for myself and like what I went through, and I take the aliens at their word, they are they came here at some point and interjected themselves into human evolution, and they are creating a type of human that they can utilize, or that is more closely connected to them, if that makes any sense. And that, now this is like what they say. um, and it's a long running program, and it's lineage related, and it's genetics related, and you know it's not a hybridization as much as it is like a mutation of the human being into something that is more like them. um, but you know, and I've studied David Jacobs' work, I've studied Carla Turner's work, so I'm aware of the other type of hybrid that is just like created by them and kept on the ship and occasionally put on the planet to serve whatever purpose they want it to serve. Um, I don't know, but I do know that the idea of hybridization in the last month, in the last 2 months, has made mainstream news outlets, you know, quote unquote mainstream news outlets. So, like, that notion that some sort of genetic manipulation, some kind of alien human interbreeding hybridization program, as crazy as that sounds, and the military knows about it, military industrial complex knows about it, and is involved on some level. I thought that was a real interesting tidbit that someone, I think it was Matt Gaetz, said, like, our military is going to like these third world countries or like these vagrant people, and no one would notice because no one cares about them, and they're taking those people and you know, hybridizing them or using them in hybridization programs. um I mean, that's interesting information, that's terrible for that person, but I don't have like a solid answer. I could go off on a tangent, but the idea that the aliens are hybridizing with humans for some purpose that is the aliens purpose is happening. I mean, I can barely believe it myself, because since I was apparently abducted, that would mean that I'm a part of that program. I did not consent to that in a previous life. I don't know what that makes me. Like, what am I? You know, what did they do to me? I think that they experimented. I think they stuck things in me. I think they prodded me and poked me with things. Again, like people have given me photographs that I gave to this group of people that I had to sign an NDA to be a part of. So I'm not going to say too much about it. But there's like marks on people's bodies they're clearly, it's physically grabbing people, physically marking people up, physically leaving blood and scarring. They're doing something, and I think it's involved in lineage, and I think it's involved in genetics. And this goes back to like the indigestible information. There is a more advanced species, more evolutionarily advanced, more psychically advanced, more technologically advanced species that's humanoid but not human, that's here on the planet and treating us like a lab rat. For what purpose? Apparently some kind of hybridization program, some kind of planetary acquisition. I mean, it sounds insane to say it out loud, but I think that's what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of seems to be what's going on. I mean, that's one thing. I think the research, did we lose Amy? I was just going to ask Amy. Um, Hopefully she comes back. Uh, I know that there are two sides to the research. We have a side of the researchers who I just call them the love and light side. It's not really derogatory. It's just the way I kind of give them a little label. At the love and light side, we've got the evil alien agenda side, those two sides. And there's two things that I've found that are largely agreed upon. And one of those things, unfortunately, is even if you're on the love and light side, and I would put people like the legendary John Mack, um, who stuck his neck out for abductees. So I'm not speaking anything negative about him. And people like Barbara Lamb, they're on that side of this is all for our own good. It's all good for us. They're sending us to the 5D. And then you have the David Jacobs, Bud Hopkins, Carla Turner, Barbara Bartholic, James Bartley, Tom Montauk, those kind of people on the other side. Um, Two things that they can agree on. It appears that these aliens are creating a hybrid race. They're creating a bridge race. And then the other thing they agree on, unfortunately, is that the majority of abductees are being sexually assaulted during these process, and not that there's an excuse for like a medical intervention, like gynecological procedures against the will of the humans, but I'm talking about not just gynecological reproductive procedures to make their hybrids. I'm talking about actual sexual assault, like actual real sexual assault is happening. And those are the two things that the researchers can agree on. So then we just have to ask ourselves, or if they're making these hybrids, what in the world are they doing with them? And planetary acquisition is number one on that list. And then we could go into other things like, well, are they trying to maybe, like you go down the 𝗓𝗂𝗶𝘁𝗶𝘃 road, are they trying to alter our DNA to the point where we are no longer sons of Adam? If this is a strange spiritual war, like we're no longer eligible to be saved by Christ, it can get really weird and probably more profound than just planetary acquisition. But those are definitely two things that the researchers agree on. We've got hybrids being created and abductees are being abused, including children, by the way. There is an adult woman who has a memory of being 4 years old on a ship at the hand of the aliens, being sexually assaulted as a 4-year-old. So I just want to put those things out there as the reality of what's happening on these ships, and we should stop making excuses for it. David, jump in.
Oh shoot! Don't you hate it when you have something to say and then you just blank out?
Yeah, especially
Um,
because I'm just rambling. I'm just
well,
rambling on,
no,
David. I'm waiting for you to jump in.
no, it's like I know because you're making good points, and I was just sitting here thinking about something you said earlier in that in your discussion there, um, about the gosh, oh, yeah, I've already seen it start to happen where there are people who are saying, the aliens are demons, like just straight up, this is demonic. So, in my opinion, that's very binary. Like, it's way more complex than that. And if you really understand the Bible, if anything, some of these aliens would be fallen angels, if not just extension of God's creation and things we don't even know about. You made the point about, like, is a prayer going to stop you from getting robbed at gunpoint? No, especially not in the middle of it. This is not going to make it stop. So these beings have free will. They're created by God, just like we are. So anyway, that's beside the point. But I've already heard it, and it was Alex Jones, who has a major voice. People listen to Alex Jones, and I don't really have a problem with him. I find him comical. I used to listen to him like 15 years ago. um, but he already has said in a couple of posts that, like, the aliens are real, they're demonic, they're creating hybrids, and the hybrids are like the modern day Nephilim. These people that are hybridized are like part demon. And I just went like, oh my God, like, it's really happening. There's someone who I really respect, and she's very well connected. And she said she worried, this was like 2 or 3 years ago. She was like, I worry that if all this information really starts coming out, you're going to have people like turn against experiencers, because they're going to be like, are you one of them? Like, are you part? And I was like, there's no way that would happen. And she kind of made it sound like there would be like ICE programs where, like, people would be like coming to your house, be like, hey, you have, genetic traits of being abducted, so we're going to take you over here. I was like, no way. But already within like a week of Matt Gaetz mentioning hybrids, here comes Alex Jones, who's got millions of followers. He's just like ranting and raving about how, let's just say, for instance, someone like me is potentially part alien, which would mean I'm part demon. And it's like, oh my God, like, and so it's going to be real weird. It's going to get weird fast. And there's still people out there who can't even wrap their heads around the fact that, like, some of the video that's been released by these insiders, it is UFOs, and there's an alien in that thing. Like, that's what's going on. It's just not registering with people. So yeah.
Yeah, those are great points, David. And I'm one of those people who started out believing these were our space brothers. And after very, very long and very complicated a story that I'm not going to get into here right now, I came out the other side. And my personal opinion, and this was before being exposed to the abduction research and before being exposed to the ideas you just discussed, David, before coming across people like Alex Jones saying that. And then we have some preachers like even Didio was in a space not too long ago, 𝗓𝗏, these kind of preachers. Before coming across these preachers, I came to my own conclusion, and this is complicated. There was downloads, there was lessons. I felt like I was involved in some kind of a chess game with getting information from one side, getting information from the other side. That I came to my own conclusion that these entities I mentioned earlier were created, in my personal opinion, for the very purpose of which they are now engaged, abductions, and that they are Nephilim. They're like modern day Nephilim. I shouldn't say modern day because I think they've been around a minute, especially things like the Mantids, but they're like modern day Nephilim. They're like a mixture, a creation, a hybridized creation of what Christians would refer to as fallen angels and humans, and or bugs, alligators, what have you. I mean, these things look like creatures we have right here on the planet. Um, and it does call that into question, David. I think even without the idea that that abductees might have been genetically altered, even in minor ways, to make us more compatible with their program, maybe to make us easier to be abducted. Maybe they've made us easier to be mind controlled and paralyzed. I don't know. But I think that's on the table. I mean, it has to be on the table that at some point we could get rounded up by our own government, by some breakaway military industrial complex uh, program, by humans themselves. I mean, it could turn into some kind of a witch hunt against us. And then, in my experience, the entities themselves wanted me to believe that I was owned by them. Like one of them claims to be my father, and that I got to the point where I was wondering if they had altered my DNA to the point of no longer being a son of Adam and no longer being eligible, safe, so for like an afterlife, going to heaven, salvation type of a thing. I think all those things are on the table, David. I'm glad you brought it up. I love that type of conversation.
Well,
Um,
I went to recently have a Bible study with someone, and he's not really aware of all of this stuff. But I started talking about it, I was like, because I talk about it every chance I get. Like, I'm always like bringing up aliens. And now that all this disclosure stuff is happening, like, that's my in. I'm like, hey, have you seen the news about this thing? And then within like 10 minutes, I'm like, okay, so there's this gray, it's in my bedroom. And so he proceeds to like pray over me. And he says that he thinks I'm possessed by the spirit of Marduk. And I'm just sitting there like tripping out, going like, what? And so Marduk is one of the, I think, grandchildren of the initial Anunnaki that came here. And so like I say that to just make the point that like as this information is coming out, this is how people are handling it. Like people think that disclosure is not working, that nobody cares. It's like people are watching the news, people are catching on, and like these are the types of thoughts that they're having. So I tell this guy, like, I'm pretty sure I was abducted. Again, you see the alien, you see the craft, a bright light, you black out. What happened? I try to leave room for like discussion. So I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I was abducted. I saw the aliens, I saw the craft, all the stuff. And just immediately I'm possessed by the spirit of an Anunnaki. Like that's where he went with it. So it's like, that's hard for me to process because now I feel shitty. I'm like, am I? Like, do I have the spirit of Marduk in me? Like, what's going on? But that's just like that's how the general public is handling this. So I don't with the love and light people, again, I do think some of the aliens are benevolent, but I think the benevolent ones are more hands off. Um, but like the love and light people think that I don't know. It's just a huge mess. I lost my train of thought.
it is a huge mess. And, we could get to the point where we have, and I'm a Christian, and I think this is demonic. But we could get to the point where, like you said, we could have Christians trying to burn me and you at the stake, David, me, you, and Carolyn, Amy, Ganga, because they think we're part of this. So yeah, it could get ugly, and it's complicated, and it could get ugly pretty fast.
Yeah, and two, I think just as like a warning to, because I think initially when all this started happening, like experiencers or, well, I don't really like that term because I think there's witnesses and then there's contactees and then there's abductees. There needs to be like delineation. Like the umbrella term doesn't quite get there, but like experiencers got excited because it's just like, oh wow, people are going to believe me and now I can talk about my story. But I would say I need to share it. I just am kind of forgetful and not really plugged into the space as much anymore. But someone sent me a video of a conference, and again, these are like very serious people, like um, police investigators, people with the military police that are like trying to figure out like what's going on. Are people really being abducted? Can we stop it? How do we help these people? And part of what they were wanting to do is like within a certain length of time after the abduction report, they want to do a rape kit. They want to use a rape kit on women. And so this is not a joke. This is not like something that's going to happen like 10 years from now. This is happening like now. And you know, I just think people don't really understand the gravity of what's going on, how serious this is, and how like every group of people is going to take this information and do that kind of thing. But like if you're an experiencer and you want your case to be taken seriously, and you, let's say 5 years from now, they actually have like an abduction hotline, like your local police department, you can call them and be like, I saw a craft over my home. If you're a woman, they're going to come to your house with a rape kit. And I'm not saying that's 100% going to happen, but it's on the table. And these are serious people that want to have that done. Now, why would they do that? Because there's decent cases. I think everyone should look into the 𝗂𝘁𝗍𝗂𝗂 case. People say it wasn't aliens. It was aliens. And nobody can seem to wrap their head around that. They just want to blame it all on military industrial complex. They're involved, but anyway, it was shadow beings with the cloaks. They had some kind of weapon. They had some kind of low frequency thing that they used to knock her down, to knock her out. And she had a triangular scar over her navel or under her navel. She had a UTI. She had really bad infections and really irregular periods because they had gone inside of her, to do whatever they were doing. And so it's like this is what's happening. And people are just going like that. I don't think they understand how serious this is. Like it's so not only are people going to be subjected to the experience from the aliens, but then if they report it to their local authorities, it's going to be treated like a rape scene. And now you're going to be a guinea pig. You're going to be interviewed to see if you're even worth believing, so on and so forth. So just a heads up that's more than likely coming down the pipeline.
Wow, David, that's interesting. Yeah, I think one of the points that you're making there is this is a lot more real than people are ever going to be able to accept. I think there's this little safe space in the community where people believe that the stories we tell are not real. This is just happening in your mind. It's spiritual, you're dreaming, you have a psychological problem, maybe you took too much DMT, all the many reasons why we shouldn't be believed. It's a lot more real. It's very scary. And to your point, Amy just left the space and she has spoken about this publicly. When she realized what was happening to her, she actually used some materials from what law enforcement would call a rape kit. And she was able to prove to herself that this was a physical thing that was physically happening to her. Um, Now, to your point, it might sound intrusive, but these days, if you report a rape, it's actually up to the person, up to the victim, whether they want to medical treatment, whether they want to make a police report, whether they want to be interviewed, whether they want to submit to a rape kit. Hopefully, it would remain that way if it gets to this point. But I could 100% see the government coming along and scooping you up into the back of a van and wanting the evidence for themselves, and actually it being much more intrusive than a human on human crime. So wow, that's fascinating news. What do you think, Megan? We lost Amy. I wanted to go to her about the hybrids, but we lost
Yeah,
her.
she sent a message saying that she had to go to work. So, boo. That's unfortunate that she had to go to work. But yeah, we've discussed this before about abductees being rounded up. But I agree with David. I mean, there's a level of difference between a contactee or an experiencer versus someone who was actually abducted. Um, I mean, in my MUFON investigations, I mean, there's people who have seen entities but have not had contact with them. Then I have people who have had contact but not abducted, or so they think. And then I have people who have classic signs of abduction, right? So I think there's a different um, levels when it comes to, um, being when we talk experiences. So I'm not surprised that that we would want to be scooped up um, for probably military reasons, like David said. So that doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me at all. So, so here you have one aspect of don't get on the ships because you're going to be used for whatever, whether it be fuel or food or what have you. And then you have the military aspect of, you're gonna come with us. So kind of reiterates, living off grid, in my opinion. But that's just me.
Hey, Lynn Buchanan's living off grid. All the remote viewers are trying to live off grid. That should tell us all something.
Yeah, see, there you go. There, perfect. There you go.
Yeah, the whole thing is just so wild. I can't believe something like this. I'm listening to what David said, and I'm sure that is going on in the background. But I'm just imagining a day when there's a hotline to call and the Ghostbusters show up to take you to the hospital to get the evidence um, of an abduction. It's just wild. 𝗓𝗁𝗲𝗶, jump in.
Yeah, thanks, Fringe. I just had a really bizarre experience happening, and it's going to make me sound nuts because I even think it's nuts. But while David was talking, all of a sudden, his voice cut out, and I thought I'd lost connection. But at the exact moment his voice cut out, my fridge cut out, and the light in my bedroom cut out. And I thought, oh, great, I've got a blackout. And all of a sudden, about 60 seconds later, David's voice cut back in. And at the exact same moment, so did my fridge and so did my bedroom light came back on. I don't know what that means. It sounds nuts, but that's what just happened.
All right, well, let's go to the prosaic first. As always, you lost service and power while David was talking.
Yep.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
And then when his voice came back, the exact same second, power came back.
All right, well, it could be nothing. It could be spooky. We really just don't know when that kind of stuff happens, right? So weird. All right, where are we going with this? I think we have Ophelia requesting to come up. Ophelia is on fire. Let's see what Ophelia has to say. Ophelia, welcome, welcome. Jump in.
Hopefully my internet's working right now. Is it okay? Can you hear me
Yeah, we
okay?
can hear you. Don't lose power
Um,
while David is speaking, because that's going to get spooky.
right?
Yeah.
I know, right? Thank you. Your mouth to God's ears. So David, wow, the shadow beings using weapons that leave a triangular kind of mark that later leads to like health issues. That happened to my dad, and it's a story I always tell. When you said that, and there's some specificity there, I about fell out of my seat. I was just hitting 100, 100, 100. Yes, yes. Like my experiences have been with craft, but like the shadow stuff mostly, and then the plasma balls of light, and that was my dad's too. But that weapon they're using interests me because they used it on him, and he ended up getting cancer in that area and passing away of it. And you said it left a triangular mark, and he always told me that during the contact experience, the shadow being took this type of weapon that was like a laser or some type of red light, and that he could feel this triangular shaped burning sensation on his side where he'd later get cancer and die from it. So when you said they used a weapon that leaves a triangular mark, it's like I fucking believe everything you're saying right now.
Well, these kind of synchronicities are definitely interesting. But just to be clear, like that case in particular, she wrote a whole book about it, and it was one of the more credible abduction cases ever because there were multiple witnesses to it. But that her name was 𝗂𝘁𝗍𝗄, and she's from Australia, and I think it happened in the 90s. But the what happened was the craft landed and her and her husband and other people, like another car, saw it too. So 4 people had pulled off the side of the road and got out of their car to look at this thing that had landed in like a by a barn. And it was, of course, it was like an orange, uh I don't want to say tic tac because that gets overused, but like the,
Oh my God, don't say a orange tic tac. That's the
yeah,
craft I had an encounter with.
yeah, it was like it
Oh
was
my God, dude. Like I'm shaking right now. You
it was
guys,
like,
if you've heard my story, you know that's what the okay, go
yeah.
on.
Well,
Sorry.
no, I mean, it's unfortunately like that's a pretty common shape, but it was like the oblong orange glowing kind of thing.
Amber colored,
Yeah,
yeah.
that had
Mm.
landed in a field. And so these 4 people get out. Kelly is one of them. They kind of walk towards it, and then underneath the craft, in kind of a mist, they see these 3 really tall, slender, shadowy entities, and the entities start approaching them. And then she feels this, what she equated to like, if you've ever been to like a concert, like the sub, like the bass frequency, just a you can like feel it in your rib cage, you can feel it in your stomach. She said she had that same sensation, and that one of the aliens seemed to have used some kind of device that projected this low frequency, like and she said it knocked her on her ass. And like shortly afterwards she lost consciousness, and heard one of the aliens, like in plain English, say do something about her. So of course then you have like the blackout, and then a couple of days later she's in her house, and there's like 1 2 3, typically they come in threes, but like 3 shadow beings with the glowing red eyes, and they have the cloaks on, like the hooded cloaks, and they're in there in her room. And the next day she wakes up and has the triangular burn, which she has a picture of, like it's in the book. It's just, it looks like a little triangle, like a little red triangular burn either above or below her navel. And then she subsequently had all types of like urinary tract infections, other infection, bacterial infections, irregular periods, just all these like reproductive organ issues, and that were clearly related to whatever was going on. And these hooded entities came to her house like multiple times. Um, so the whatever the thing is didn't leave the triangular scar. But I talked to someone else who's like a quote unquote insider, and he was drinking, and I don't know what to make of it, but he said something to the effect of like, oh, he was like, they have technology that'll mess with your head. And he said it'll put you in like this childlike state where you're really receptive to suggestion and all this kind of stuff. He said it puts you in the same frequency that people who have sexual trauma, they're in the same mental frequency. They kind of have like a childlike mind, and they're they're open to suggestions, and you're easily manipulated, and they can like beam you with it. And now suddenly you're doing all their bidding. I was like, we have that or they have that? And he said both. And so I heard that, and then I went to go read 𝗂𝘁𝗿𝗄's story and heard about this like low frequency whatever technology that they had that kind of knocked her back. And so anyway, you hear these kinds of things, you read these kind of cases, and then you present that information to the public, and just immediately it's like, nope, there's no way that happened unless you prove it to me. And even if you prove it to me, I don't believe you. It wasn't the aliens, it was the military. The aliens would never do that. This is bullcrap. And then just the whole thing just gets immediately shut down. So unfortunately, it's my view, again, like the initial contact was like with this orange, glowing amber, oblong shaped thing that people see all the time up in the sky. What's in it? Cloaked, hooded shadow entities with glowing orange red eyes. And they are leaving all kind of bacterial infections in this inside of this woman. Is that what I put?
Thank you. No, yeah, the glowing red eyes too.
It's
That
like
checks
it's like
out.
put two and
Hmm.
two together. And I've told people that, and they're like, the military has these night vision goggles that if you look at them. I was like, oh my god. Okay, all right, fine. So it's like nobody wants to believe that it's the aliens, but it's my personal opinion, somewhat informed opinion, that it is the aliens and they are capable of doing this. And it's not good. They're not benevolent. And they can communicate, but they don't. They leave stuff out. We're just in the dark. So anyway, sorry.
No, I just have one more question. Have there ever been cases of them shape shifting into animals, like keeping the red eyes, but kind of shape shifting into other things as well, or no?
Yeah, I think I've posted it multiple times. So if people follow me closely, they're probably tired of hearing it. But I always use it as like the one good instance of not necessarily shape shifting, but definitely either messing with your perception of them or them actually changing their form. But the 𝗂𝘗𝗶𝘁𝗹𝗲 UFO contact case, where the 62 kids saw the aliens and the craft, one of the kids from that incident, her name, I forgot her name. She's the one who recently passed away because she had brain cancer. Um, but she continued to have contact with Greys throughout her life. And she was interviewed at a conference, and it's a rare clip, but I have the clip. And she said that the Grey would like phase, whatever that means. It would phase, like this was awake, and she would see it do this between a lion, like an animal, and a gray. And she assumed it was because it was trying to take a form of something she was familiar with, as if to say, hey, it's me from Africa, remember, in Zimbabwe. See, I'm a lion, but it's the gray, like I know you, it's me. And she said that was kind of the vibe. But I think that's the one really credible, good case where you have a gray that is either altering how you are perceiving it or how they are actually shaped.
Are the shadows working with the grays? Are they separate
Oh, I don't know, but
against each other?
I think that there's some cases that have happened in the last 10 years, um, credible cases, and these individuals along with me kind of like spoke to some of these insiders, but he said they had bulbous heads, but they were in his house and they were in his son's room, and the son was in like a baby crib, and he was awake and he saw these things, and he said the way they moved was like almost like they were running, but they weren't running, they were floating, which, again, like the Zimbabwe case, people saw the Greys doing that in broad daylight, where it looked like they were floating slash running and just kind of whoo, whoo. So I think that there's some indication that the shadow beings and the Greys, they're one and the same, but it's some kind of cloaking. I know that there's certain reptiles that are alive on the planet today who have I don't remember the term, but at dusk, under certain light, their eyes have a red glow, and it's a way that helps them see at night. But alligators have it, a couple of other reptiles have it. So I don't think it's any coincidence that, reptiles on Earth have this thing. I can't pronounce the name. Tactilium, leptic. I can't. Anyway, it makes their eyes glow red, and so some of these aliens have the red eyes, and they might be reptilian. I don't know. I'm just trying to put two and two together. Everybody is. Everybody's trying to figure it out. So I don't have any definite answers. I'm just spitballing.
Thank you. I'm going to drop down. I really appreciate you. You blessed me today with that information. That really was confirming in a lot of ways. So thank you, David. Appreciate you. Have a good day.
Let's see. While Ophelia is dropping down, I will address two of her questions. One of them was the animal thing. I have watched a squirrel come into my window and get up onto my chest. And I was and look like stare into my eyes. And I knew it wasn't really a squirrel. I knew it was a gray, but I didn't see it shapeshift. And that's happened a couple times. It happened. I had something similar happen where I had a cat, two cats sitting on my chest, staring into my eyes, and I knew they weren't cats. And then to your point, Ophelia, you're talking about the shadows and the grays. Ted Rice has seen them using technology to turn from shadow beings into grays. And then I also had an incident. Is she still in the room? Oh, yeah, she is. I also had an incident where, having been plagued by shadow people my entire life, I finally got to a point at some point in my 50s when I was being paralyzed by a shadow being. And by that time, I had learned how to get out of being paralyzed. And once I got out of being paralyzed and opened my eyes and sat up in my bed, lo and behold, there was a gray standing in my room. So if you talk to Heidi Hollis, she'll tell you that there's an intimate relationship between the grays and the shadow beings. Now, is every single shadow being a gray? Probably not. They could be different things. But it does seem like the grays have some type of technology to cloak them, like David was saying, perhaps to put them into the astral realm and to appear as shadows. So there's definitely some type of connection there. Megan, did you want to, or David, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that my wife, like, again, well, I'm sorry, my ex-wife. It's been 2 years. It's difficult. It's been very hard 2 years, but my ex-wife, like, during all of those experiences, and this was way before, because I didn't even know people were seeing shadow beings with glowing red eyes. Like, that was totally off my radar. I had no idea what was going on, really. I mean, at all. I just, like, at all. But anyway, she said that one night she had a dream, and this was after she had seen a tall one in the bedroom, and I had seen one out in the carport, like a gray, like while awake. Um, she said she had a dream where she was like in this big circular, low lit room that looked kind of like it had copper walls, and it seemed like kind of humid and misty in there. And on the opposite side of the room were these four beings that were all the same height, and they had glowing red eyes, and they were just kind of shadowy, and they would speak like in unison. And she asked, like, why is this happening? And they said, you know the reason. And she said, was it blank? Like, it was just a one word thing. And they said yes. And I was like, well, what did you say? And she was like, I don't remember. But then, like, fast forward like 10, 12, however many years it was after that, that I started getting involved in the UFO space, like UFO Twitter and all these discussions. And then I start hearing accounts of like these shadow beings with glowing red eyes. And I'm like, oh my God, like, that really happened. Like, because I'm constantly trying, I just can't believe it happened. Like, I can't believe I saw what I saw, and that all this crazy stuff is like really going on. But it's my opinion that whatever the shadow beings are that have the glowing red eyes, like, that is the grays or something working with the grays. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's that might come as a shock to a lot of people. It took me 50 years to figure it out. Um, so if you ask people how many of you have seen a gray alien, most people they're not going to respond to that. But if you ask for hands on how many of us have seen a shadow person, you're going to have lots and lots of hands going up. Um, and so that might come as a shock to people that a lot of these shadow beings very well could be grays or aliens, and they could be other things. We have reports of people who are astral traveling, and sometimes you'll see a remote viewer if they're doing the out of body remote viewing. You might perceive them as a shadow or some kind of an astral creature. So it's not that all shadow beings are gray aliens, but I don't think we can separate those two anymore. Memer guy, welcome to the space. Memer guy asks me like 123 questions a day. And I do my best to give, 2-word answers. But you're relentless with those questions.
Yeah, I got to apologize in advance there, but also thank you for answering the questions. This is my first time ever going out of space. I'm a little nervous. And there's so many things that I could cover here. It's kind of hard for me to hold myself. So one thing that's interesting, a little background about me. Since we're on this topic of shadow beings, I was raised real religious, super religious, to the point that eventually, I kind of broke away from what that was. And I had almost like a spiral where I almost completely became an atheist. But there was an experience that happened to me, and I want to say this was, within the early 2000s, somewhere between '08 and 2012. It's really hard for me to pin down the exact year, but this particular experience happened to me in what we would call objective reality. There was one night when I had gone to bed, and I was sleeping actually on the floor. Kind of a long story there, but I'd clean out the room to make space. I was sleeping on the floor, and my closet was directly, you know, uh, behind my head, and I woke up. My room had a door to the back of the house, and there was a window, and when the moon was shining and stuff, you could see the moonlight shining through, and I remember waking up, from a sleep state, and I looked up and to the right, and there was this black, I would call it like amorphous mass. It was something that wasn't normal, and I looked at it and I recognized it. I remember the thought that went through my head was exactly that. Uh-oh, that's not normal. And I remember actually thinking that. So there's that part of it that's kind of an interesting thing. I remember thinking that, and as soon as I thought that, this thing was slowly moving, but as soon as I thought that, I mean, just a quick flash, it moved from where it was in the air and it spread itself over me, and it paralyzed me from the neck down. And then I was trying to move, and the only thing I could move was my head and my neck. Um, so actually, below the neck, and downward is where I was paralyzed. And I remember this all happened like within a matter of like seconds. And I remember wiggling my head and my neck around trying to move, and everything was just totally, I couldn't do anything. And then I remember, before I could even think, I heard myself speak to this thing, right? And I've told this, I told this story when I was in college. I told it in a room full of like 30 people, because hand to God, it's the truth. I respect everybody's viewpoints. One of the things that I want to say here is, somehow somehow I got caught up in this as a researcher. So I've been basically trying to scrub data, and I apologize for all the questions, but I'm really building a large database, so to speak, in my mind, and I've been researching since 2019. It's taken me on a long journey, but I spoke to this thing, and I said, Jesus Christ defeated you at Calvary. And as soon as those words left my lips, like, this thing left the room at the speed of light. It was crazy. And all of a sudden, like right away, I could move everything. And I got up and I actually was like euphoric. The way I interpreted that was like David and Goliath. You have this little kid, going up against a giant. There's no way that he should be able to win, and then boom, he knocks the giant on the ground. And I started jumping up and down. I went into the next room, which is where my brother was asleep. I saw he was totally asleep. Everything was normal. And then I went through that room into the kitchen, and I looked at the time, and it was close to, like, I want to say 3 o'clock in the morning. And I never forgot that experience. So, I had no idea. If you would have asked me about aliens and all this stuff, I would have laughed. I remember that time frame, that most people, like in the early 2000s, most people would never have entertained even the idea of anything like aliens or anything like that. This was something you would see in the movies. And now, like, for the people that are kind of awake, there's a whole movement of people who are like slowly coming awake to the fact that there's definitely something going on. I think a lot of people who don't really want to pay attention to the subject, they want to define it as maybe technology that the government's developing, just like it always has been, and they're still kind of putting it away. I think we're going to get to the point where, potentially it's going to be undeniable. But that's an interesting experience regarding shadow beings. And after coming full circle and exploring so many different things in this quote unquote the phenomenon, I see the similarities of like what could be potentially considered like an abduction event, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And again, I'm not classifying it that way. As far as I know, up to this point, thankfully, I've never been abducted. And, my condolences go out to all of you there, who clearly have had some very traumatic experiences. I would say that I have contact with something in the phenomenon. And I think I'm very cautious. I'm very cautious and on how I describe it. But I think it's actually, how would I call it? I started calling them friendlies. And just before I got on this call here, I'm here in Arizona, and I just popped into my vehicle here just for privacy because I want to talk on this chat. And just overhead, I got a sign, in the sky. So that, I call them friendlies. I think I could even stretch out, to say maybe that they could be angels. I'm very hesitant about saying that because it's data that I'm collecting and I'm trying to understand, how it all works. I think that's about where I'm at because I can continue to go on and on and on. But I really appreciate you letting me, have the air for a little bit. And I'll kind of drop down here. If you have any questions for me, I'm more than happy to answer them. But this is just kind of my foray into a public space here.
Well, I'm glad we were your first space. I hope we're not your last. Thanks for sharing your story. It takes a lot to get up and tell a story in a space for the first time, but it'll get easier and easier, and then you're going to be branching out even into other conversations. So you ask so many questions, Memer guy, and I try my best to answer them, but a lot of times it's way more complicated than just a couple of words on a text. So it can be hard to answer questions with just a few words
Absolutely.
to
I
text.
completely
So
understand. And
yeah,
again, thank you so much for the questions that you do have a chance to answer.
you're very welcome. Uh, Doomer Daddy's here, David. David, have you met Doomer Daddy? So Doomer Daddy caught word that we were talking about the end of the world here in this space, in the beginning of the space with the mothership coming our way. So of course he's going to want to try to milk you for everything you might have on that. Jump in, Doomer.
Hey, is my tech working all right? I've been gaslit the entire day.
I can hear you right now. I was told that I guess our volume's pretty low. I'm not sure what's going on. Everything looks fine on my side.
Can I spam your nest while David answers with promo stuff?
Yeah, you can spam the nest. I can't get anything into the nest anymore for months now. I have no access to my own nest, whether I'm hosting or co-hosting or a speaker, anything. I have no access to the nest anymore.
Yeah, I heard new iPhone people have that problem. Hey Megan, hey Fringe, thanks for hosting the space. David, is it cool if I ask you a couple questions? My DMs are blowing up. My flight radar is showing a giant planet-sized mothership on the way, and I have questions. Can I ask and see what I can get away with?
Yes.
You sound super comfortable. Thank you. First of all, let's start easy. I want you to slip and fall into the accidental disclosure. I don't want to go head on. I think I have like zero chances that way with you. What assume there's zero risk of traumatizing people, or assume that it's a virtue to traumatize people in this space. All right, so don't worry about the snowflakes. They're not in here anyway, and they will leave very soon if they are. So if that is not a limitation, what the fuck do you think? What's your doom hypothesis? What do you think is going on? Not just in terms of, limp dick disclosure, catastrophic soft disclosure. Like, what do you think is really happening on this rock?
In terms of like the aliens, or in terms of like the end of the world?
Oh, Yes and yes, both.
I think that you know, I'll just speak like from my own experience first and say that um, you know, from my own experience and from my own research, that it's pretty clear that a lot of contact cases and a lot of abduction cases, the individuals walk away with some notion that an apocalyptic event is coming and that the aliens are involved and that there's going to be some kind of evacuation that occurs where the aliens come for like their chosen people, their offspring, their children, their science projects, however you want to view it, their assets. They're going to come and gather them up, take them somewhere safe, and then the planet's going to be destroyed. Like, you know, second coming of Christ type scenario. So, like, my blanket statement would be there is a possibility that that is happening. Like, that's exactly what's going on. We're in the end times, um, and these beings are like micromanaging the apocalypse and preparing people to be taken off the planet. And that there could come a time where the motherships that are in the bottom of the ocean come out, that the motherships that are cloaked in the upper atmosphere reveal themselves, and, you know, everybody's in a panic and people start getting gathered up, you know. So that's like one data point, I guess you could call it, that's on the table. Like, does anybody know if that's actually going to happen, if that's the 100% truth? No, but I feel like there's enough credible contact cases where communication with the aliens occur that that type of scenario is a probability, you know. And then from speaking with people who are quote unquote on the inside, and, you know, I started the space by throwing this warning out, and I already told Fringe that, like, I have signed an NDA. It's not that big of a deal. I'm not super special, but I was pulled aside at one point by somebody from, you know, United States intelligence. I have his resume. He's legitimate, and I was just warned to just be very careful about repeating what I've heard. But I think if I don't give, you know, names or or anything like that, and just kind of say it like it's just something I heard. I don't know if it's true or not, but that the alien grays is kind of like the majority of what we're dealing with here. But they are capable of messing with our heads. So we think it's multiple species, but it's some sort of highly, highly, highly advanced AI that is working on the behest of something that we have not encountered yet. And whatever that is either on its way or going to reveal itself. And they're basically looking at like planetary acquisition kind of thing. And they mess with us and they don't really care about us and they don't really like us. And um yeah. So is that true? Is that fact? Is that what's going on? I don't know, you know, but I do think that a lot of people who have contact experiences, and I don't mean, this isn't to diminish it, but I don't mean like assuming the lotus position and summoning an orb. And now you're seeing a star dance in the sky at 1,000 feet and it's transcendental and oh my God. I mean, like there's an alien in your bedroom and it's talking to you. Like in those cases, the most genuine of those cases, the communication that occurs points to some sort of apocalyptic event that's on the horizon, and the aliens are preparing people for that. So that's where I'll start.
Thank you, David, and thank you for the candor. It's not my space, but I'm going to say it anyway. This is a safe space to doom hard. So don't hold back. In fact, if it's the end of the world, it is a sin to hold back, because if you can't speak the truth when the world is ending, you're less likely to do it after your soul gets recycled, your memory is wiped, and you get for the next 6,000 years. So I think everybody should really consider this. Now's the fucking time to let it rip and speak the truth. So I really appreciate you just not getting all Hillary Clinton-ish on me and giving me proximate answers. My question to you is, do you think this is what and this is your opinion, so nobody's pinning you down, but do you think this is what Lou is referring to at the end of the Age of Disclosure movie, when he says something along the lines of, there's something that's imminent and we need to have the conversation. I just can't have the conversation. It's way too late to have the conversation. It's long overdue to have the conversation. But we all need to have the conversation. It's not my conversation to have. Do you think that's what Lou is referring to?
I have not seen that documentary, and I don't know exactly what he's talking about, but I will say that when I had all of my issues come up because I flew too close to the sun and I was suddenly in the midst of the UAP task force, that Lou Elizondo reached out via a mutual acquaintance and was kind of very apologetic and very kind, where others were not. So I don't have any beef with Lou, but I will say that I did not have a lawyer. I didn't want to hire one, but I ran the NDA that I signed through AI. And basically, if I violate it, they can sue me into the ground, go through all of my stuff, confiscate anything that they think would be like suspect, surveil me. And if I resist any of that, they could go to any lengths necessary within the law of that state to get me to shut up and make sure I never say anything again. So like these NDAs are serious. Like they will ruin your career, your life. You'll be left bankrupt or in jail. So, when these people are hesitant to say things, it is because there is a heavy price to pay for saying too much. Um, that said, I do think that the idea that there is some kind of big craft headed this way or some kind of apocalyptic event that's going to happen, like if it's known to us, just the common man having discussions on X spaces, it's known to them and they're having those same conversations. So if he is, you know, privy to it and acting on it, that is maybe a little concerning. That doesn't mean it's true. That just means he heard it and believes it. However, again, the most valuable source of information in this whole discussion is going to come from people who have communicated with the aliens. So if there is an agreement between the military and the aliens, and there seems to be, and communication occurs, and these aliens are not just telling abductees that information, but people from the military industrial complex, and then they're going, oh shit, I'm leaving Washington, I'm buying a farm, I'm digging a well, and I'm building a bunker, that might mean that something is coming, like some kind of major event. World War III. I've heard that some of these motherships have technology that can like cause earthquakes and make volcanoes pop off and cause tsunamis. And the actual aliens are going to destroy the planet. There's all these scenarios of how it could go down. Um, and I don't know. Again, I can't say that any of it's true, but it does seem like that's not just a moot talking point. That's a serious discussion. And is that what Lou's talking about? I don't know, but it seems to be that he's kind of hinting at that. And as far as like whatever is imminent, I think he's either talking about the alien craft coming up out of the ocean in mass, or we're gonna be invaded by China, and he's just talking about drones.
So don't you find it incredibly suspicious or interesting that it's getting harder and harder to distinguish between a rapture, a harvest, this 5D patchouli oil ascension stuff, and a loosh farm? You know, something that basically is going to, you know, end of the world revelations. Are you all as suspicious as I am that all of this just sounds like different flavors of the same story?
Yeah, and then there's also the blue beam narrative that it's all just like going to be a holographic hoax. But you know, as far as like how it's going to happen and why it's happening, like a rapture, a harvesting, um, a loosh farming, you know, the blue beam holocaust, like I think that is our interpretation of what we're hearing. But again, that information is you're going to have to ask an alien to give you specifics, and they don't seem to be giving specifics. And I think all the different flavors of apocalypse is just coming from people who are either misinterpreting information that they have heard or taking information and twisting it or being lied to by the aliens themselves or being fed misinformation from government agents. And so it's created like this confusing scenario, but the one through line is that, you know, the spiral is tightening and we're headed towards some kind of major event that's going to make the whole world stand up on end and take notice.
And do you find it also confusing that we have kind of like a double, triple inception psyop where we have typically not people in ufology really paranoid that we're going to get too much disclosure from Trump? I mean, the fringe community that isn't ufology, they're all getting ready to resist the deception of Project Bluebeam. Meanwhile, ufologists are worried that the disclosure is just going to be, you know, good evening, we're not alone, God bless America, leave me the fuck alone, don't ask any more questions. That's what I think we're going to get. But we have 𝗓𝗓𝗃 warning that if you hear that a ship is on its way, that's a psyop. So that sounds like a double inception psyop to me. Do we just, what is it going to take for 𝗓𝗓𝗃 to have a conversation with Elizondo while he's telling the audience the same thing? Do you know what I'm talking about? There's that scene where 𝗓𝗓𝗃 meets up with Elizondo, and then there's that separate scene where 𝗓𝗓𝗃 tells people, if you hear about a ship, that's probably a psyop.
Yeah, Fringe touched on that earlier, and I've actually communicated with Jeremy not too long ago. I think he's a good dude and he's trying his best, but since he's become famous, when you get to that level, people are going to scrutinize you and going to criticize you and throw you under the bus. But I think he's doing the best he can. But Fringe heard from someone who was at contact in the desert that Jeremy's kind of changing his tune a little bit on that. And I don't know. You can ask her about that. But I think that, you know, I heard Jeremy say that same thing, or I saw him post about it, and that definitely piqued my interest because that means like that narrative is being tossed around on the inside. Like there are people who are genuinely concerned that that's actually going to happen, and then there's people saying that it's a psyop. So I think that there's still an active effort to shut this whole thing down, like disclosure in general, and just give the people a grainy video. We're not alone. God bless America. No more questions. Like, let's talk about something else. Like you said, like
Yeah, so you're getting that,
yeah,
you feel
so
that too.
that's it's like too late to deny it because it's been in the mainstream since 2017. I mean, Edward Snowden's whistleblowing didn't even stay in the mainstream for that long. So I mean, it's too late to dial it back, but I think that there's still an active effort from people on the inside to shut this down and just give minimal information because the reality of it is all the stuff we've been discussing in this whole space. And it's just, they don't have the answers for everything, they don't have the solutions for everything. And some of it is just so wild that people aren't even going to believe it anyway. And then if people do believe it, you're going to have panic. And I don't mean like weeping and gnashing of teeth in the streets, but like we discussed earlier, people bought up all the toilet paper and put like one lane arrows in the grocery stores for the pandemic. Like, what are they going to do if a mothership comes out of the ocean and now the government suddenly has to be like, oh, yeah, we've known about this for a long time. Sorry, we didn't tell anybody. You know, it's going to be a mess. So there's still an attempt to shut it down. And us, the common man, are watching this happen, going like, all right, I'm getting jerked around like in two different directions. And I think we're just watching the internal struggle on what to say and what not to say. And some disinformation is being sown into the actual information to cause enough confusion to turn people off so that they walk away from it and stop asking so many questions.
All right, I've almost wrapped up my waterboarding, my virtual waterboarding of David John Lanier. Thank you. You've been a great sport. Um, there's a space that 𝗂𝗍𝗂𝗃 did with John Ramirez, and in that space I asked him, and Blue Crayon clipped it up, so it's been circling around a little bit. But in that clip, I basically asked John Ramirez, who has been told by the CIA but not forced to sign NDAs. The CIA said, don't talk about Nazis and their connection to the CIA. Don't talk about my lab's abductions. Oh, and also that 2027 cataclysm stuff, try not to talk about that either. And in connection, when he talks about these three forbidden things, he also refers to Elizondo advising the ufology groupies, us people, to just get a hobby until 2027. And so I asked John, if we have a potential cataclysm coming till 2027, and we're also being told to get a hobby, doesn't that sound much more like continuity of government, as in we need to shut these UFO people up so that they don't tell the rest of the world that we have a motherfucking cataclysm on the way? And I asked John, can you give me a more logical conclusion for why you and government would be more concerned about catastrophic disclosure than an actual catastrophe? And he said, no, I can't. He agreed with me that that's the most logical conclusion that you would draw from that. Do you have a better conclusion for me? And are you just as angry as I am, but you just have a more calm and cool demeanor? Because for me, I feel like we're just making a way, like we're just watching a limited hangout of this shiny ball syndrome, UFO files here, confirmation there, while the people with golden tickets, as Matthew Brown would say so poetically, fuck off to their bunkers. So I'm livid that we're exit liquidity. We're the 8 billion people that just need to get out of the way for the threshold civilization to make it to their cushy ZPE bunkers and whatever the hell they have there. Are you fuming just like I am, or is there a different story that you're telling yourself?
Um, I I know that when I spoke with John Ramirez, and he and I were on a podcast together, and so I chatted with him before the podcast and after the podcast and during the podcast, and he threw some shade at one point, and he said that, just emphatically, like, it is known by the government that certain abductees, certain contactees have implants in them. And there are certain people who you know very well, and these were his words, uh, who will either not answer the question or will defer it to somebody else. And I just took that in the moment as he was talking about someone very well known that we all know who is on podcasts. So I assumed he was talking about Lou. And the notion is John was there to say, I have been working with the CIA to see what I can say, and they're going to let me talk about hybrids. Now, why was I on that podcast with them? we're going to talk about hybrids, we're going to talk about implants, we're going to talk about the CIA's involvement with the study of hybrids and implants. And then I'm going to throw a little bit of shade to say that somebody you know very well, who's on a lot of podcasts, won't talk about any of that stuff. And if you ask him about it, he'll either defer it to somebody else or not answer it. So he implied then that there are topics that are not being discussed and they have information and they're not making it public. Now, I kind of addressed at the top of this that there are people on the inside who know that the NHI, that the aliens are like entering into people's homes. I dare say have evidence of it, but they don't publicly disclose that. That confuses me as to why they don't, and it does frustrate me. I get most frustrated with the aliens themselves. As far as like the disclosure of everything, I have seen so much that I kind of understand why they balk at disclosing all of it because some of it is scary. So I think they're trying to kind of mitigate how alarmed they make people feel. Um, and as far as them just like spilling all of the beans and saying everything they know and just being like, yes, emphatically, we're tracking a mothership, it's headed towards Earth. The end of the world is in 2027. This is what you need to do to prepare. Like, do they have that information?
October
October.
2027.
Well, that's my birthday month, so that would just be a great birthday present for me. Just the end of the world. I would be very happy.
Mine
But
too.
nice.
It would be an apocalyptic
Yeah, for
finale.
me, I would love that because I'm sick of this place and most of the people on it. But it doesn't frustrate me as much because I just kind of view like politics and insiders and the military industrial complex as like in the grand scheme of things, like the pyramid of known reality, they're like a couple of tiers down below God, the aliens, And if I've already been in communication with the aliens, if I've already seen them and communicated with them, I don't need to hear what the people below them have to say because they're not going to inform me of anything I don't already know or have some inclination about. Now, do I think that they need to tell the whole rest of the world to prepare them? And do I understand why that makes you livid? I do, but I'm not necessarily faulting them because I think that that's just like a massively dark, heavy subject matter. And some of it is airy, some of it is 5D ascension patchouli, but a lot of it is dark and confusing and scary. And they just don't disclose all of it because of that.
You mean like eternal soul recycling?
Well, as far as like the soul,
Like us being.
yeah, as far as that goes, like,
What did you mean?
well, the soul recycling, like, as far as I understand, like that, I can't speak to that because I don't know if it's true or not, but I have certainly read material that says like the reptilian aliens and the gray aliens have their hand in establishing this like what's the word I'm looking for? My mind just went blank. Where like you don't die, like the no birth no death, like Buddhism, reincarnation. Oh my god, I couldn't even think of the word.
They're fucking
So
with like the
yeah, so
purgatory realm, the afterlife realm.
reincarnation is real, but it shouldn't be happening, and it's being implemented by these alien entities, and so they're kind of like keeping us in this reincarnation cycle so our souls can never ascend into the next realm, and they're kind of feeding off of that energy. And if that's the case, and I think that there's some reason to think that that could be the case. I'm not against it. I just know that it's on the table as an option. I don't know that it's actually happening. I know people who have encountered the reptilians and they're not benevolent. I have encountered the grays and they're sneaky. I don't like them. They're up to something. If that's actually going on, like, I don't know what to do about it, like this, because what you want to do is like, how do you solve that problem? Because if that's a problem, how do you solve it? And in my opinion, if that's going on, you have to employ the assistance of other entities who have the power to kind of combat that, or drive them off of the planet like some kind of infestation. How do you drive them off the planet? Can you drive them off the planet? Well, we can take down some of the smaller craft. Can we take down the motherships? Because the small ships come out of the big ones. The big ones are in the ocean, they're in the upper atmosphere. Can we contend with the big ones? Do we want to start like an intergalactic war? That's so if that's going on, that's like an if then scenario. And I can't sit here and say that that's 100% happening, but like if that's going on, does it frustrate me? It does. And I've definitely been outside at 1 o'clock in the morning with tears in my eyes, threatening to kill the aliens if they ever come back to my house again. So I get the frustration, but it's like at a certain point, that's why I kind of turned towards Christ because it was just hopeless otherwise. Like there was no solution. There's no I can't defeat it. We can't defeat it. This may be so big, and if Christ isn't real and there is no afterlife, then we are the subservient nourishment experiment for an off planet entity that has total control. And we are in some kind of matrix scenario that's being run by aliens. And sometimes,
Oh my God, David, that's
well,
dark.
sometimes I wonder if like that's what's going on and there's no point to any of this. There's no God. The religions are all fake. They're control systems that have been implemented, that some species from some other star system came here a long time ago, created us, and lives off of us and keeps us here, and occasionally takes us off the planet, destroys it, puts us back down, and carries on with the experiment. And there's no real purpose to anything. And the alien overlords are just, that's what they are. um, Sometimes I'll stay awake at night going like, is that what's going on? And like the Anunnaki mothership is on its way and it's going to blow us all to kingdom come. Like, if that's what's happening, then that is indigestible. That is bleak. You don't tell the average person that on a Tuesday afternoon. If that's not what's going on, then it's just, something that I don't know, maybe is a little bit more manageable. Maybe they can be chased off the planet.
David, thanks for being such a good sport and indulging all of my questions. I really appreciate it. It's just 3 sentences. I'm just going to read it to round it off, and I'll drop down and just push my stuff to the nest. I was scrolling forever to find this. These are the ending lines of Age of Disclosure. And I'm not, I don't have Elizondo beef. I don't have Corbell beef, although I think these would be great products to have in the supermarket for the end of the world. I don't have any beef with any of these people. They just are prominent in the scene. The ending lines of Age of Disclosure. I want to tell the American people what I know, but I can't because the vast majority of it remains highly classified. I feel tremendous pressure to share what I can, but I know there will come a time where we all wish we had done things differently. That moment is imminent. And when that moment comes, I know people will say, I wish somebody would have told me sooner. Now, normally I get those mixed signals from borderline women while I'm dating, but it's definitely all over the place from Louis Elizondo. So anyway, thank you so much for sharing your viewpoint, David. And everybody else, thanks for letting me ask all my fucking questions. And thanks, Event Horizon, for sending out the doom signal. Quote, dark German chocolate doom is up in this bitch. And it's his fault that I'm here asking you questions, David. So thanks, you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Doomer. Where would we be without those final questions for David? It's funny, David, that you just went through your whole kind of worldview in just a few minutes. I think I went through that very same thing with these creatures. We have, on one hand, the creatures themselves, and I think they've convinced the intelligence community of this. The creatures themselves want us to think, first of all, you have to cross the threshold of them actually being real, and then you get to the part where they're not really our space brothers, and then you get to the part where they want you to believe that they are in control of the whole thing, that they seeded us here, that they created us. Well, first of all, if you created me, why are you sneaking into my house in the middle of the night and having to take me onto the ship paralyzed and stealing my genetic material, to create something else. I mean, the whole thing doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but we created you, you're in an ant farm, and really there's no purpose in life at all. So that's one scenario. And you know what, David, I leave that on the table as a possibility. I have to. The other scenario is that there is a good side, there is a God, there is a true creator, a true God. I believe in Christ as God in the flesh on earth. And when it comes to the afterlife, I have a post on this where we have people who like to say, well, humans have all this power and this is what's classified. Humans have power and we just have to tap into this power and exercise our human God given powers and go up against these NHI. And when someone says that, that tells me you have never been face to face with even the lowest of these creatures. If you think that a human being is just going to go up against an NHI with our psi abilities against theirs, it just tells me you don't know what you're talking about and you have no experience with these creatures. And I came to the same conclusion you did, David. I will appeal to a higher authority with the power to subdue these creatures on my behalf. And really, that's the only hope at this point. And I've said this before on podcasts and maybe in spaces. If the God I believe in is not real, if Christ is not real, it's hopeless. It's literally 100% hopeless. And so I choose hope. I hope it's not just a pie in the sky, that I'm believing in some type of fantasy that doesn't exist. I don't think it's a fantasy. I think there's a lot of evidence for what I believe. But if what I believe is not true and it is just hopeless, I mean, there's nothing that means the entire thing is absolutely devastating. And I don't think most people's can take that psychologically. Now, I don't think I'm reaching for that for only for psychological purposes because I was at a place in about October, November, December of 2022 where I thought, okay, that's it. Like, that's it. These creatures made us. What I believed is not true. Like, there's no hope. And we're just on a prison planet. Maybe our brains are in a jar, like what JT believes, and none of us actually exist and we're just plugged into this fake reality, the whole thing. So it's interesting, we kind of both came to that conclusion that I choose hope. And I hope a lot of people in this room will choose hope. Megan, I will stop bloviating and go to you, and then we'll get to some hands.
Yeah, no worries. I sent you a DM. But yeah, this it's funny that David brings that up and then you're talking about it, and then it reminds me of this existential crisis that I went through with Malonga's research. So yeah, it's it will keep you up at night, no problem. Um, and it's a hard pill to swallow. Is this, because it makes me think if the government is telling us, Semivan specifically is telling us that the truth is just too awful, then it makes you wonder, okay, is it this matrix thing that David's talking about? Is it this Malanga thing? Is it, something similar? Um, people would literally give up hope. Um, I mean, it's a hard pill to swallow. It took me a while to get over that one, but I don't think that's the case. I really don't. I believe in a higher power, just like you, and I think at the end of the day, that's what it's going to boil down to. But yeah, thanks.
And Megan, I think and just from my own indoctrination program, the aliens want us to believe that there is no hope. And I think they've convinced at least half the intelligence community that there's no hope, that they created us and they can do whatever they want, and that there's no hope. And we're on an ant farm and they just feed off of us. I'm pretty sure they've convinced half the intel community that that's the case. Who did we? Oh, event.
Steven.
Event. Yeah, jump in.
Okay. So don't get on the ships when they come, or I mean, what's David think? Because I know Fringe, you've said don't get on the ships no matter
Yeah, I
what.
was going to ask David, with all the knowledge that he has now from his own experiences. I actually have this question written down, so thank you, Event. And also from, just getting a peek on the inside without revealing anything you shouldn't. Are you taking the ride? Like if they land in your backyard at the landing zone and they tell you to get on the ships, David, are you getting on the ships? If you have a choice, by the way, if we're not just taken against our will as per usual, if you have a choice, are you getting on the ships?
Uh, I'm not entirely sure. I know that my ex-wife, she said no. She said it was a hard no. Or she actually said, I'll know if I should get on or not. Like it depends on who's in it. And she said if it's those black-eyed things, I don't want to have anything to do with it.
Well, what if it's your dead relatives on the
Well,
ships? And if you ask
then I'll,
Ted Rice is going to say they're going to come pretend to be your dead relatives to get you on
yeah,
the ships, and you might end up chopped up in little buckets as fish
no.
food. Yeah.
I'll just, if that happens, I'll just be like, yeah, I've heard this one before. I'm good. I'll just go down with ship. But I would say it probably depends on who's in it and who's asking me to go, and what's happening around me. Like if it's World War III, World War IV, we're already in three, but if it's like nuclear explosions, if it's floods, if it's all the volcanoes going off at once, if it's the earth splitting open and earthquakes everywhere and people are being swallowed up, um, and it lands and says, we're here to take you away from this so you can survive, and you're one of the chosen people who gets to go. In that moment, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I think there's a part of me that would get on, but it depends on who's in it. If it's one of those things, if it's a creature, no. I'll just die. But then again, I'm a believer that we have a soul and that life does not end when the physical body dies. Um, However, I also was raised Christian, and I have a Christian mentality that that's a possibility of a rapture. And in the Bible, it says that when that occurs, that angels will appear from the four winds, from the four corners, to gather up the believers. So biblically, it's saying that something like that will occur. And so now you have, the alien saying, yeah, that's going to occur, and we're going to be the ones that's doing it. It depends on which alien you're talking to, I guess. Which that then goes back to, you have to have a study to find out the intent of these beings, what beings are saying what, who to believe, who not to believe, because some of them are lying, and it's just like it's a huge mess. But maybe that's what Lou's talking about when he's like, we got to start figuring this out now because something's coming. And I kind of had that same sense of urgency back in 2012 when it all came to me. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, people can't stop taking selfies long enough to even care about this. Like, why am I wasting my breath? Like, just whatever. So it depends. It depends on who's on the craft, I guess.
Be honest, David. Are you just going to do the opposite of what the ex-wife does? If she stays, are you going to hop on a ship?
Actually,
I'm joking.
no.
I'm joking.
I don't know. I know she's not getting on. Oh my gosh, that would be a day right there. Oh Lord.
Imagine that, though. I mean, these are serious questions, you guys. Number one, David, if you knew that aligning yourself with the aliens would affect your afterlife potentially, I'm assuming that your answer would change to no. But let's just, I mean, these are all kind of pie in the sky hypotheticals. But let's just say that you have an opportunity to get on a ship and your wife and kids, and namely your kids at this point, are not getting on. Number one, let's just assume we have a choice. Number two, let's assume we have. So imagine the whole world is falling apart, the wave is coming, the earth is splitting open, and you have a spaceship land and tell you to get on. Even if you know that you might end up as food, um, and or heaven forbid, you get on that ship and your afterlife is now doomed, for at least a very long time, possibly for eternity. Imagine being able to resist that offer, even if you knew what that offer was about, because our desire to preserve our physical bodies is pretty high. I mean, it's an instinct at that point. So it's a big question. And then imagine in your case, David, your wife says no, and she keeps your children. And are you getting on the ship, without your children? I mean, these things are complicated. I, for one, um, I'm not convinced. I don't know this. I would love to hear from Ganga on this. I don't know if he'd be willing to comment on this. I'm not convinced God is going to use a spaceship for the rapture. I'm not convinced of that. I guess it's a possibility. I have to consider that if the negative side has this technology, they got it from, at one point, the negative side and the positive side were all together. And so the positive side has this technology as well. Is the negative side just imitating positive side technology? I don't know. Is God going to use spaceships to take us off planet? I don't think so, but I would stand to be corrected in a heartbeat. I just don't know. And you mentioned, David, well, who's inside the ship? Well, who is inside the ship? What if those things appear as they do in near-death experiences and during abductions? What if they appear as your dead relatives? That's what Ted Rice thinks, that they're going to appear as our dead relatives and try to convince us to get on the ships. And then let's just say that tricking you to get on the ship seals your afterlife into their pocket dimension of hell, recycling. So these are big questions. And I don't think there's an easy answer. I say, no, don't get on the ships. I'd rather take my chances with the planet than I would inside an alien ship. But that's me. And that's what I would recommend to everybody else, but it's easier said than done. When you're being offered a ride, it's easier said than done. Event, go
Right.
ahead.
No, I mean, yeah, that, I mean, it's just like, yeah, if the world's falling apart and you have a free ride to get off planet, I mean, I just don't understand if there's these aliens that are sending messages that we're going to destroy the planet. And you've heard these old stories, especially about the Anunnaki, about how they flooded the planet. Well, if they have technology to destroy planets, don't they have technology to save them? So like when Bledsoe says the planet's going to split open, well, wouldn't they have the same technology to kind of prevent something like that? It seems so weird. It's almost like the trickster element, you know what I mean? And the other thing that fascinates me is that the AI is trying to figure out if they can understand what languages animals speak. And I think they said that they found out that they do speak languages. What are the cows fucking thinking? They're like, these bitches are worried about aliens. We gotta worry about you and the aliens. Just to bring up something
No
funny. That's
kidding.
it.
Boy, the poor cows, they get
Where the
snatched by the aliens
yeah.
too.
The cow's like, fuck you, get out there. Anyway, thank you. I'll drop back down.
Thanks, Event. It's a great question. And man, it's a big question. It's a tough question. It's not easy to think about. It's easy for me to, game it out in my head of what I would do. And I pray that I would have the strength not to take that choice, because I believe that these things are, I think this is going to be a game of allegiance. And allegiance to the aliens is going to affect your afterlife. That's what I personally think. And so I hope to God I would not put my soul in jeopardy by aligning with them and choosing to save my physical body over my soul. I know that Genga commented on this, that if he had the option, and just putting it out there for people who, if you do have an option, just understand that even if it doesn't affect your afterlife, you're probably going to end up chopped up as a protein supply. Um, so just understand these entities do not have our best interest in mind. Now, if you happen to be some kind of prized cow and you're worth $14 million to these entities and they want to preserve your life for the breeding program to be reinstated at some point, okay. I mean, if you want to be a prized cow for the aliens, that's your choice. I say no. I choose no. But that's not for everybody. Um, I think there's a lot of people who think it's super cool to be chosen by the aliens. Matthew, welcome to Space Jump In.
Hi, thank you. Is my sound okay? I've got a new setup, so I need to check it first. You hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Okay. Man, I don't want to take it off topic, but I'm inclined, anytime Ulrich's talking, he gets my blood boiling in a good way, because I know he and I are always on the same wavelength about a lot. But I just wanted to, with some of the discussion that's happened in the last 15 or 20 minutes, I just feel compelled to share something that for me is so helpful. And I frequently try to share this with people like friends, even people who are not even into the weird stuff. I've had these conversations for years, just kind of even before I realized the stuff, how weird our reality is. I would have these kind of conversations with people in like a Christian apologetics context, because for me, it's just so essential and helpful. It's such a foundation to have these certain kinds of I can't convey it in a short few remarks in the space, but I just want to say something, to plug something, plant some seeds, so everyone else can maybe spend a little time thinking about things this way, maybe watching some videos, reading some things. And that is this, broadly speaking, I'll say the philosophical arguments for God's existence, God being kind of defined in classical monotheistic, classical theism. Catholic philosophers have been really good, and Islamic too, for decades, or for centuries rather, reasoning through this to where, let's put it this way, like you can have a certain kind of God as a very broadly and generally defined, which is the most important things about God, God being the ground of existence, the thing that is truly in control. You can have a certain kind of just confidence and resting confidence and certitude about that, that's available to us all, because it relies on this thing we call reason. And if we want to have any sort of logical thoughts, discussions, conversation, contemplations about anything in life, much less any of this weird stuff, it all utilizes this thing we called reason. And it all comes from the same place. And it's like reason entails a certain conception of God that is basically the foundation of all monotheistic traditions since men have been thinking and discussing and debating it. And it's just that God is basically the ground of existence. It could not be so. Aquinas did centuries ago, spelled all this out. Aristotle started a lot of these traditions, and then people like Aquinas really refined it and wrapped it up in some Catholic theology as well, but the foundation is still the same. Like God is that which exists necessarily, could not be so, and God has the power, subsistent being itself, in Latin is how Aquinas framed it. It basically means that which has the power to exist by virtue of its own nature, and like needs nothing outside of itself to be, just being itself, being qua being, or being as such. Being, existence is God. God is necessary being, and anything else that is somehow other than God, if there even is such a thing, but it could only be said to be contingent, while God is that which is necessary. So anything that exists, it all comes from God, and God is necessary. So these kinds of things, you could go spend some time looking into them, like Aquinas' 5 ways and things like that. And I just recommend it to everyone, because I think fear, like all the negative entities, I think all of the puppet strings and ways in which they manipulate us, one way or another, they tie into fear, some manifestation of fear in our psyche and our ego. And I think as long as you can rest in this kind of knowledge, it really eliminates a lot of the ability we have to be manipulated and controlled by dark forces, whether it's, oh my gosh, what do I do? Do I get on the ship or not? Or do I believe it's, what this guy's saying about a ship coming, or what this guy's saying about the earth tilting over? We can still figure out the truth, but being less encumbered by fears. And so anyway, Aquinas' 5 ways, that's a great place to start. You'll find some good contemporary YouTube videos about people spelling it out to atheists, and like, oh my gosh, I'll have to really think about that. And I just think it'll help us all navigate these uncertain times and a lot of the uncertainty and anxiety it causes us, and help us be fearless. And this gets to my last point. I'll make it quick. Like, I think if we had started this and not been controlled, we as in our leaders or whatever, been controlled by fear decades ago, perhaps longer, we might have all been working on this together, so that we could be working together to, perhaps break free from these this thing or these things that are controlling us. But now here in this last hour, well, there's no better time to start than now. We should have started a long time ago, like planting a tree. But here we are. So I think just remembering that God is the very foundation of existence. Now let's fearlessly go do our best and not be afraid, not be controlled by fear. And I think, I don't know, I just felt compelled to share that. And thanks for listening to me.
Wow, Matthew, thank you. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Thanks for jumping up. And we do need to be grounded in that, and we need to be brought back to that, Matthew. And I will say that just having been very close to broken by these entities, it's important. It's important to be brought back around by things like Matthew just said. So thank you, Matthew. Megan,
one more
wanna
quick
jump
thought,
in?
real
Oh,
quick.
yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to say, if you may not find that compelling, like what I'm saying about these philosophical arguments for God, but the problem is, if you don't want to be compelled by them, then you need to just give up what you think and talk about anything. Like I said, it hinges on the power of reason itself. So if you want reason, then you kind of need to have God in there with it, because it's literally the foundation of reason. So I forgot to emphasize that. But
Yeah, and I
thank you.
tend to agree with that, Matthew. I read a lot of R.C. Sproul. He was always my hero. A lot of his philosophy books, and I was very compelled by them. He's very logical, and he uses just logic and reason to prove the existence of God to the point that you can through logic and reason. And we need to be brought back to that. So thank you, Matthew.
Yeah, I always remember that about you, about R.C. Sproul. So me
My
too.
favorite guy.
Me too. By the way, I'll always remember that. I always
You
do.
know, if it
All right.
weren't for him, I mean, I do blame him slightly, although I hope he's not actually suffering for it, for teaching me the Seth view of Genesis 6. But I love all the rest of him. He's great. I have several of his books I'm staring at right now on my bookshelf. Megan, jump in, and then we'll get to the last two hands. It's getting late on the East Coast. And Megan, are you East Coast or Central?
I'm Central.
Central, and I'm Pacific, so it's the earliest here, but my husband is still sitting down watching some show by himself. Probably NASCAR, maybe. I'm not sure.
Oh,
Um,
good one.
so we'll get to the last two questions and then wrap it up. And David, thanks for joining us today. This was great. Elections, jump in.
Hey folks, I'm sorry I got here a little bit late, Fringe. I was in Sarah's space and I did want to not show up. I'm really sorry I missed the discussion. David, I looked at your timeline. I really liked what I saw. I will re-listen to this at a later date. I've been in spaces for 10 hours today. It's insane. Two things real quickly. Well, let me ask you a question for the first thing. Fringe, did you tell everybody about that document dump that was talked about in Sarah's space?
No, I think I missed that. But what I did mention was David referenced it to Doomer just a minute ago. That apparently Corbell and Elizondo were at an event in Los Angeles. It was not Contact in the Desert. It was in LA, and Sarah was there. And when that
Yeah.
mothership thing came up, I think Corbell asked Elizondo if Corbell was going to have to eat his own words about this mothership because it might actually be real. I did bring that part up, but I missed the document dump.
Well, anyway, I put it in the thread. There is like a huge, like monster document dump. And we, did a sidebar and talked about it for probably 45 minutes. I suggest everybody put it into a VPN just to be careful, because it may be a phishing expedition. There may be some malware, so be very careful. But a few people put it through systems to kind of do an analysis, and it was a dangerous pack. But everybody used their own judgment on that. But it really could constitute, and this definitely will make Doomer giddy. The information that we can tell by the quick cursory look that was made is a lot of that information has been released before. But the point is, it is catastrophic disclosure in the sense that any information, I mean, it deals with you just have to look at it. Arrow, the CIA. I mean, it's huge. So if anybody has an interest to take a look at that, I suggest they do so. As far as the last part of the conversation that Matthew and you were having, I would just offer this. I think that the evidence of the Creator, God, is all around us, our life itself. I don't think anybody that has their eyes open and recognizes a la Descartes that they are here and experiencing something can deny the fundamental a priori evidence of a creator. And to me, that is a very important thing for a couple reasons. Not only because it will make you, look at the world that you live in and experience it and embrace it and, realize how special this life really is. But the other thing about recognizing that there's a greater power than man is it instills you with a certain amount of humility. And both those things I think are righteous in their essential nature. Um, the other thing on this is, I'm really not sure the evidence would indicate, and this is, I was a philosophy major, minor, whatever. It was I was a history major, but I was English and philosophy as well. I took tons of philosophy courses. The point being is, I don't think the evidence is clear that God is an interventionist. And this is, I think, an important point. I think everybody has to acknowledge that there is a creator and that we are living within a creation that is so beyond our ability to practically understand. God created everything that is. And I mean, it boggles your mind when you really look at it as far as looking at the universe and thinking about, good gracious. And I do think that there is an operant reality, kind of like a quantum connection, for lack of a better way to say it, that is indicative of a let's just say a certain amount of affinity between the creator and the creation. But this is a pretty tough planet we live on, and there's a lot of death. I mean, we really, in a lot of ways, are a murder planet, and there's a lot of, if you look at the reality of the life that we're given, it's harsh for a lot of people, and God is not coming down to fix that for us. I don't buy into the notion that we're broken. That we are, God's creation. And are we fallible? Yes. This is why it's important to be humble and understand our position in things, so to speak. But I'm also very much a Gnostic from the standpoint I believe that the Spirit of God is within all of us, and there's a capability that is beyond understanding. And I think it's found when we come together and love one another, love creation and our Creator, and love each other. And if we do that, I think that's the best thing for allowing, a godly reality to emerge from our frail human capabilities. But I do think that God, the Creator, wants to have some aspect of a relationship with His creation. And I think that's why, if you look at it like a Fibonacci reality, um, and to my mind, if you're God, you're probably pretty lonely. So I think that He's created beings that can have a sentient experience and maybe find some connection back to Him. But again, I've just not bought into the idea of an interventionist God. But there are things that happen that lead me to think that there is some aspect of affinity and benevolence. I've had things happen in my life I can't explain. I probably shouldn't be here. I've counted at least 12 lives that times that I really, and I have had a near death experience. So, I mean, it's a crazy, crazy world we live in. And I just want to applaud you, friends, for being as courageous as you are to take a look at these things in the most direct way possible, because this whole ET matter, it is got a dark side to it. And people are so caught up in trying to make this you know, oh, it's all going to be okay and this and that. And no, I think that we're in a situation that is, it could be a difficult road. And that is part of God's plan, whatever that might be. But I think they're beings that create the consequences that we're trying to deal with, and we create consequences ourselves that create problems. So I'm rambling a little bit on this, but I've enjoyed the conversation, and I love everybody that I'm looking at in this room. Um, just love one another. That's the most important thing for us to protect ourselves and to hopefully have some ability of a collective capability to deal with this spiritual warfare that we are in. And I do believe we're in a spiritual warfare reality. So anyway, everybody have a great night, and I appreciate it very much, Fringe.
No, I appreciate you, Elections. Thank you for that. It looks like we've lost David um, for the night. I think he had some technical issues, and so he's dropped out. It's getting late on the East Coast. It's getting late probably everywhere by now. But it's been a great conversation. We will close it out. We'll close it out with Megan, but let's go to Memer Guy since we have a final hand up. I'm still trying to squeeze out of Ganga whether he thinks God is going to use spaceships to evacuate us from the planet. Memer Guy, go ahead. Do we not have Memer Guy? Memer Guy might be having some technical problems too.
Yeah, I don't hear him.
Might be losing Memer Guy. Wow, what a great space. That turned out great with David. That was just a last minute throw together.
Yeah,
Uh,
good. I'm so glad.
do we have you, Memer Guy? What's going on? Let's give us a mic check. We do not have you, Memer Guy. Your audio is non-existent on our side. It's been a little glitchy as per usual. So it's been a great space. Thank you, David, for jumping up and we're just put together a last minute. Thanks, Megan, for being available. I know it was totally last minute on a Sunday. Thank you to my husband for being tolerant of me getting on to spaces on a Sunday afternoon while he's watching NASCAR. And thanks to everyone who came up and just contributed and shared a story and people who listened. We appreciate you. Megan, what do you got? Can we, I've got nothing still from Ganga. I need to know whether God is going to use a spaceship to evacuate his people from the planet. I don't see anything like that in scripture. I don't see it there, but could that be an interpretation? Sure, it's a possibility. And then we're in trouble, right? Because if someone like David, who has seen these things face to face, is going to decide, well, let me see who's inside when it lands. Well, we know from the abduction research and just from us abductees right here in the room, all around you, we know that these things can mess with our heads and appear as anything they want.
Yep.
And so, going by the way they appear and going by any fake feelings that they happen to be sending out, that's not trustworthy. We can't go by that. Don't go by that when you're deciding whether you're getting it, if you get offered a ship, because guess what, most people are not going to get offered to get on the ship unless you're going to the slaughterhouse. You're going, if you see a mass boarding of a ship, just assume it's a slaughterhouse, you know. Um, so yeah, it's gonna be wild. If this actually happens in our lifetime, it's going to be wild. I'm still waiting for Ganga to answer my question on whether God will evacuate us from the planet on spaceships. So I'll be waiting for that. Maybe I'll get an answer in the purple pill. I ask a lot of questions, sometimes for the benefit of other people. Sometimes my questions are answered extensively, even beyond my own understanding, and other times they go unanswered. But I appreciate all the answers I get from Ganga. I love every one of them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we
Absolutely.
we appreciate it. And people might not realize this. He's really putting himself out there lately. I
Yeah.
think he's also feeling some kind of urgency.
Yeah.
Um, some of the information he puts out is very high level and beyond most of our understanding, but a lot of it I try to just put in very simple terms. It's very helpful and it's crucial for us to understand these things. He's putting himself and his family in jeopardy, you guys. So
Yes.
follow Ganga, read through his feed, see what you can understand out of there. You might not understand a lot. Some people can, I cannot. Um, and just see what he has to say. Pay attention to what he's saying. It's important stuff, and he's putting himself out there to give it to us. So thank you, Ganga. And Megan, why don't you close this out?
Thank you to everybody that came. We really appreciate it, even though it was last minute. Looks like we had a really good turnout. And thank you to David for taking time out of his Sunday afternoon. Thank you, Fringe, for taking time out of your Sunday afternoon, as well as your husband. We appreciate it. I wasn't doing anything. I was just hanging around the house anyway, so I'm glad everything worked out great. I wish everybody a wonderful week and live your life and just love on your loved ones. Just like I always say, I mean, make the best of it. And I hope to see you next time. Let's not wait so long
Yeah,
between.
it's been a minute, and don't,
It's been like a month.
it has, and tomorrow is not promised to any of us, but we might get disclosure on Tuesday. So let's see if we can hang around till Tuesday. We're gonna have David 𝗓𝘁𝗄𝗃 et al.
Tuesday. Oh
On the
yes, that's
steps.
right.
Yeah,
No,
on
I
the
thought it was
steps.
Thursday. No, it's
Is
Thursday.
it? Oh,
Or is it Tuesday?
Thursday? We have to make it till Thursday? Okay, on Thursday.
Oh God.
Hey, Fringe, real quickly,
Yeah.
do you think that there'll be anything from that?
I have no idea. I have no secret information on that. I'm waiting just like everybody else to see what that's going to be. I certainly appreciate they're pushing. You guys are really pushing. I did see something a little discouraging from Paulina Luna. I thought I hope this wasn't a new interview, but it looked like a new interview where she was saying like that's it. That's pretty much everything we saw in a classified setting, and you guys have already seen it. I was like, what? That's all our crap. Like there's nothing
Yes,
even
it is.
classified being released yet.
Yeah. And it is Tuesday.
It's
I
Tuesday.
had to go
Okay,
back.
great.
Yeah, I had to go back and look. It's
We
Tuesday.
only have to
So,
make it to Tuesday. Hopefully we get disclosure on Tuesday. Elections, do you know which
well,
interview I'm talking about? Like she said, oh, that's pretty much it. But
Hey, I saw it.
yeah, what
It
did
was
you
a
think
horrible
about that? It was
interview.
horrible.
It was with the New York Times, Ross Douthat, however you say his name, I can never remember. He's kind of like the token conservative at the New York Times, but
Doubt it. Doubt
Douthat.
it.
Yeah, as a new, he's been on the topic a little bit, but they were both acting like collaborative gatekeepers. It was the most annoying interview I've seen with her. Certainly, it was just very bizarre.
And was
I
that
saw
right,
that.
Matthew, where she was kind of saying, well, that's pretty much it. Like that's all we got. And we didn't get a drop on Friday.
Yes, and yes, she was basically definitely talking it down. Like she was acting weird. Like I've heard her talk about the stuff she's seen in classified settings in a much more direct and straightforward way, and she was almost walking it all back in a way, like kind of implicitly by just I don't know by like omitting. I've seen some really crazy stuff. Like she just left all that out, and yeah, let it pass as if you watch that interview, you think. And she even said like to your point, she did say something like, yeah, I think everything that I've seen that's any good has been released already, something to that effect. Yes.
I didn't see the whole interview, but I've never given her much credence, frankly. She's very performative. This whole matter is now controlled by the White House. And, I've said it was announced that they were going to start releasing materials. It's going to be an empty nest. And I think that's what we're seeing. I would suggest that people take a look at that Curiosity's cat item that I put into the thread. It's actually got Ash on the link, but there is information that's out there. But at the end of the day, we're not learning anything we didn't already know, and they're kicking the can down the road again, and they're stealing everything that they can behind the scenes again, and nothing has changed. And is the ball moving in some cursory way? Perhaps, but it certainly doesn't feel like that. And this is confirmation. We're not going to get the next generation energy tech. We're not going to get the medical tech. We're not going to get an admission of guilt or prosecution of people that have committed crimes. We're not going to get our real history as human beings, and we need to rise up and say, look, we deserve this information. This is our sovereign right, and this is just indicative of how broken our government is on every level. And that's why we are interested in this issue, because it is that important. And it's coming to a head in some fashion. I don't think that kicking the can down the road again is going to, pass muster at the end of the day. But there's a lot of things that people are getting sick and tired of. And, I think of the Bob Dylan song, "Everything is broken." It's true. And what are we going to do to change it? Love each other. That's the best thing we can do. And, prepare. Things are going to go local either by choice or by consequence of failure. And I think the latter is probably the most likely. So just, get ready, know your neighbors, have plans, realize we've got to figure out a way to build after this thing crashes and burns, because I don't see that that's not going to happen. Is ET baked into this cake? Who knows? It could. I mean, I think ET's on the table. He's on the field, part of it, but it's really our fault. We've kind of screwed the pooch, and we're doing it out of religious imprimatur. We're trying to engineer an apocalypse. That's what the people in power are doing, frankly. It's scary as hell. Israel's doing it. The evangelicals and this administration are doing everything to break everything in sight, thinking that somehow it's going to push us over the edge into something new. But the reality is, this is being done by criminals. I hate to say it, but that's the truth.
First of all, elections, you'd make Doomer proud right now because I haven't heard so much doom since we opened the space. Um, but to your point of engineering the apocalypse, never forget the NHI that are behind the humans engineering the apocalypse. They're the ones who are trying to push for the apocalypse a little bit more early. I think they're trying to push a little earlier than it's actually supposed to be here. So that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think we agree in the broad, but I don't know any of the details, and that's where I get frustrated with everybody. But something is afoot. We're getting a noose built for us in front of our eyes. We all know it, and we're allowing it to happen. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I
I
mean
think it's up to
that's peak
us.
doom right there, elections. All right, we do have to
Well,
go.
he learned everything he knows from this. He won't admit it
Yeah,
though.
he would be very proud right now. We're gonna have to clip that. Where's Blue? We got to clip the last 2 or 3 minutes of absolute doom from elections. Blue. All right, you guys, we got to get Megan out of here. She's on Central Time. She's got to get up in the morning probably. Some of us are retired. Wait, Megan, I thought you were retired.
I am retired, but I got to take the boy to the Boys and Girls Club.
Oh, got to get up in the morning. All right. I will have to go to the gym in the morning, as per usual. That's what my weekdays. Get up, hang out,
Hmm.
drink some coffee, feed the dog, go to the gym.
Yep.
So,
That's a good life. That's a pretty good
you know,
existence. Good for
elections,
you.
I'm going to briefly brag about my life. You want to know why? Because people in this space, and especially my haters, think that because I speak what I believe is the truth, on my posts and in spaces, I think I'm telling the truth as I know it. Do I know everything? Absolutely not. But I speak the truth as I know it, and a lot of the truth I speak happens to contain material that is very fearful, or it inspires fear in people. If I'm telling the truth and some of the things I'm saying is real, it's pretty freaking scary. And those people actually assume that I'm living like some doom, fearful life somewhere. My life
Oh,
is
that's right.
actually,
Yeah.
what's that, Megan?
Yeah, that's right. You're
I
right.
mean, they do. They tell me I must be like low vibing. And so if I'm low vibing, if we really want to look at the law of attraction, I'm doing a piss poor job of low vibing because I actually have a great life. I have a beautiful family. I have a great relationship with my husband and my family. I have a beautiful home. I've got a cute little 3.5 pound dog who keeps me entertained all day. I wake up in the morning whenever I want to. I go to the gym, maybe do some errands. I have a really good life. So, I just want to kind of dispel those rumors that I'm a low vibe person attracting the low vibe life. It's actually pretty good. I mean, if it wasn't,
Well, there goes the
there
doom.
goes the
There goes the
doom.
doom right out the
There
window.
goes the doom. I do not live a doom life. I actually live a charmed, magical life. It's actually pretty perfect if it weren't for the end of the world coming. So, That's for
than
my
that. You
haters.
know, dark humor really has its place right now. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln.
To all my haters, I am not the doomer. It's actually elections. We've just switched roles. All right, you guys, we got to close it out. We got to let Megan go to sleep. We got to go watch what show are we watching right now? We're watching Friends and Neighbors, I think. So we'll be putting that in. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate all of you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for tuning in.